All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 10th meeting of the City of Tampa Variance Review Board. My name is Gary Brown, and I am the chairman this evening. From my left, the members of the board are
Dustin Pastor,
Brett Feldman,
Lynn Hertak, Sam Walker,
Susan Long.
okay, and also in attendance this evening from the city are Attorney Kate Wells. And would you like to introduce the person next to you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle has joined the City Attorney's Office. I think it's been all of 2 or 3 weeks, and she has jumped in and just really doing a tremendous job, hit the ground running, and she's going to be working with the Variance Review Board in the future. So,
All right, well, welcome.
thank
All
you.
right. Also from Land Development Coordination is Miss Roberta Meade Curry and Brett, Brett Burks. And then from Natural Resources, we have Brian Knox and Owen Williamson. And Jonathan Scott is here, I believe, from Transportation. I'll take just a few minutes to review tonight's procedures. Cases will be called in the order that they appear on the agenda. When your case number and the applicant's name are called, please stand in either aisle to the side of the room to acknowledge that you are here. Staff will then give a brief introduction to the board of each application. When you approach the podium, please speak into the microphone and state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in. The applicant and/or their agent will have 10 minutes to give testimony, present witnesses, and documentation as a part of their presentation. This is your time to present all of your evidence. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to the application will then have 3 minutes each. After that, the board may have an opportunity to ask questions regarding the application. Finally, the applicant will have an additional 5 minutes for a rebuttal if needed. The time periods, as stated, will be kept by the chair. Any information such as pictures or plans that have not been previously submitted as a part of your petition and you intend to present at this hearing tonight for consideration in support of your petition must be individually presented and accepted by the board. After acceptance by the board, you must submit the item to staff for it to be entered and made a part of the permanent record. The board bases its decision on competent and substantial evidence which is presented this evening and which meets the criteria required by the City Code of Ordinances. The variance granted by the board will be only for what is shown on the site plan and will be compliant with any terms and conditions stated in the approval by the board. You must have 4 votes for the variance to be approved. If an insufficient vote is obtained, the case shall be automatically carried over for the consideration of the board's next meeting. If approved, your variance will expire 2 years from today's date. All other city codes will need to be met. If your case is continued, it will be continued to either the April 14th meeting. Are we open still for that? Okay, all right. Or the month following on May 12th for the public hearing dates. If you wish to appeal the Variance Review Board's decision to the City Council, you must file a petition for review of a board decision within 10 business days of the decision. If your variance is granted, you will not be able to pull any permits until after the 10-day appeal period has passed. Your cooperation will help ensure that this meeting runs smoothly, and it will be greatly appreciated. Before we begin the first case, is there any business regarding the agenda that staff would like to address?
Okay. Good evening, Roberta Meade Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 4 on the agenda, or on the agenda, yes, under agenda, which says we're going to continue a case, that's to be stricken. Okay, and then also to let you know that April has 7 cases plus 1 continued case. So you have a total of 8 cases for the April hearing schedule. May schedule, you have 5 cases so far.
Okay, so you're saying that one is coming off the agenda?
No, I had the agenda there was going to be a case that was going to be continued. We're going to go and hear that tonight.
Oh, okay, all right. So we still have the 8 total. 8 cases
Correct,
total.
as the agenda stands, yes.
Okay, all right. That's okay. With no further business to discuss, is there a motion to approve last month's minutes without objection? Okay, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I will now ask Ms. Wells to address the board regarding any ex parte communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, if any of the board members have a conflict of interest as defined by state law, now would be the time to disclose that. So seeing none. Also, if any of the board members have had any ex parte communications, if you've had any contact with members of the public or the applicant about any of the items on tonight's agenda, now would be the time to disclose those communications, or if you received any email or written communications, now would be the time to submit a copy into the record. Seeing none, I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, all persons who will be presenting evidence or testimony to the board shall rise and be sworn in. So even if you're not sure if you're going to speak, now's the time to stand up.
Anyone who may give testimony on any matter coming before the board this evening, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, we'll call the first case for tonight, VRB 20-02.
Okay, Roberta Mead Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The first case is VRB 2002. The address is 8507 North Packwood Avenue. This is a continuance from December 10th. If you remember, this case was, took your suggestions to look at what was presented initially. You asked her to go back and investigate if there can be some alterations to help her with her request. They did look into that, and that is why they have a new request before you tonight. She did renotice. So the request for this evening is also involving Chapter and Section 27-156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the side yard setback from 7 feet to 1 foot for the primary structure. Per Section 27-290, to reduce the eave-to-eave separation from 5 feet to 3 feet for the accessory structure, eave-to-eave separation. Applicant is seeking to vest the portions of the existing conditions of the primary and accessory structure connected by roof additions built without permits, as cited under the code case CMP 19-001-12560 and code case COD 19-003-3223. Applicant will and has modified the portion of the structure, which we'll show you, to be a breezeway, and reduced some of the overhang that was presented earlier. The property is zoned RS50, and the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's information is included in your packet for review. Right-of-way found it consistent, transportation and natural resources found it consistent, zoning found it inconsistent, and if it is approved tonight, we're asking for the condition B that she goes through permits and obtains her CO and any and all inspections. This is the property appraiser's information. Page 1, page 2. Aerial map. This is the subject property here. This is Packwood along this way. Their surrounding properties are RS50. I'm going to show you the plan that she originally presented, and then the modified plan. So this was the original plan from December 10th hearing. Again, the side yard here, where this was connected by a roof across here, and the accessory structure, which is now called the section. She reduced the primary setbacks primarily. So she changed her request. Orient it the same way so you're not confused. So I'm going to orient it the same way. It is the same way. Sorry. Okay. So Packwood is out here. This is the front of the property. This is the 1 foot with the overhang here, which she's asking for a variance for that section. She has removed this portion of the roof and this portion of the roof and created a breezeway to connect the existing door. picture of the front of the property. Looking from the front on the south side. Other side of the front of the property.
Roberta, if you can zoom out just a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Trees are on it. Okay, I'll go back. Front of the property. Front of the property on the south side. Front of the property on the north side. Looking down the street to the north. And this is a close-up of the room addition on the side of the house. And I do have the notice of violation. I have nothing further to add to the record. Do you have any questions?
I don't see any. We will later, I'm sure. Good evening, applicant. Come up and please state your name, address, and that you've been sworn in.
My name is Hilda Childress, 8507 North Parkwood Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33614.
And you have been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you
Welcome
for
back.
listening to me again.
Go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. Since I was here, I contacted a licensed still nervous, and it's the second time. Should I go over for the variance, what I asked to do again?
Well, you need to explain to us what your hardship is
Well,
and why you're here tonight
yeah,
asking for the
okay, the
variance.
hardship is that I hire a handyman, supposedly, her license, and all the papers. He done a job for me in 2016, and I asked him, everything is in order? Yes, it was my mistake by not checking it out. Anyway, when I asked him, what about the permit? We don't need a permit. And this how, last year in April, my nightmare began. So, this, I hope you can see that. We're requesting for part of this roof that was installed without my permission. I went to work at 3, and when I came back the next day, the guy said, look what I did, I didn't ask for that. So, it's costing me $1,800 to have it done by a licensed professional now. And, by a licensed professional, and I feel confident that everything's gonna be in order because by talking to this professional, in 10 minutes I knew he was talking about, that when I purchased the place in 2007, part of this roof, when you go in to the back of the house, it was built in, it was ready, built in. It wasn't built correctly. So when this person came in to give me an estimate, he said, well, we have to do this and this and that. And it's what, by coming here, I knew that I have to do. So I am waiting to hear the okay to go ahead and take it down and start all over. You know, I'm at your mercy and I'm grateful. So I still have the debt that I have to pay it, you know, but I'm working 2 jobs to do it, so that's the situation. Yeah. Yes, I have the pictures here, but I think you saw already most of them.
It wouldn't be bad to show us again.
Yeah, okay.
Explain this.
This is what I want to keep, this part. They will, part of this part that covers when you enter.
Can you help her kind of get it orientated correctly? And
Yeah, no? Okay. This is
There you
that.
go.
I'm so nervous.
yeah, that's
This
right.
part I want to keep, part of, from here back. To cover when you go into the door, and then remove the rest that the individual did without my permission, but it's done. And this is the distance of the variance for the, it's 5-1, no? Yeah, let's see. From the 5 to 3. From the house to the building. See? That's it. You're right, that is, and these to show us the distance from the door to here. It would be 5-3.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to show us or tell us?
No, that's it.
Okay. If you stand aside, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this application, either for it or against it. Okay.
Thank
Seeing,
you.
seeing,
Thank you.
well, hang on. Seeing none, we're going to ask the board members now if they have any questions
Oh, okay.
of either you or staff. Okay.
All right.
All right. Board, do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so let's start with the out parcel building.
The little structure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us
yeah.
again, what is that little structure?
That was a shed
Okay,
to put away my stuff, Christmas things and things. So the handyman says, oh, well, you can build a little apartment here.
so that,
So anyway.
that shed, you built that shed?
Yeah, it was built, an add-on to it.
It was well, did you build the shed or did you expand on the shed?
We expanded,
Okay, so the shed
Yeah.
was there when you took over the property?
yes.
Okay, and how much of the shed was there when you took on the property, and where was it placed exactly?
It was placed in the same place.
Okay, how much did you expand it?
The old part, I had to take it down because it was old and.
It's fallen apart.
Yeah,
Okay.
fallen apart.
All right,
So,
so did it grow in size?
and
Like-
size, yes,
All right, about how much?
about 220 feet.
Okay, and was the edge of the shed, the one that's closest to the backside of your property, was it always in that location, or did you expand closer
It
to
was
the edge?
It was always there.
It was always there, so
Yeah.
it started there,
Right.
and you
Right.
expanded closer to your property?
Right,
Okay. And then the structure in between the roof, I know that was added, you said, without your permission.
right.
That's come down now, and now you've got a separation of about, you said, 5 feet from wall to wall,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
We asked
so-
them 5'3",
Is it?
5
they're-
feet 3 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those numbers are small, they're hard for me to
Okay.
see. And is, actually, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I redirect? Okay,
Okay.
let me redirect.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that same way. Same way. Okay. So the ask, again, she's removing, they're not removed yet, but these portions of the roof will be removed. If you see this dimension, right now it's 4 feet 5 inches from wall to wall, okay? And so she's asking for a piece of the roof overhang here to remain. which would allow the 5-foot eve-to-eve separation to be reduced to 3 feet eve-to-eve separation. Okay? On it?
So
Yes?
there is no eve on the primary structure.
Correct, on that back side, that's correct.
Does she happen to have a photograph of that?
Show where
Let
the
me
back of-
see.
Do you have anything that shows in the back of this wall here?
Or I guess she'll take it off all the way back to the primary structure, is that?
No.
And does
I
she
drove there
understand
last
she
night,
won't
but
have
I
an
didn't
eve?
think it was necessary this time, no.
Ma'am, those pictures you had, those little photographs that you had, I think they showed some of the, if you just want to put those right on top of that other document
Oh,
there,
okay.
that might help. Turn them.
Turn that one, yeah.
And you might zoom out a little bit.
So this is the door, this door. Can you zoom out? Is this door.
Miss Me
Yeah.
Curry, can you zoom out?
Zoom out for us.
When you put that photo on there?
There you go.
It's an automatic?
High tech.
Now you
There
can
you
zoom
go.
in.
Good. So that's the shed.
Door.
So that's the door to the shed, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and that little bit of overhang above the door is what you're going to keep?
yes.
Okay.
If it's possible, if it's not, it's okay.
No, I mean, we're trying to understand what you're asking. Okay, that one's upside down,
It's all right.
or sideways,
Keep going.
sideways,
Keep going.
other way.
There you go.
There you go.
So that's the.
Okay,
back of
so that's the back of your house, correct?
Yes, on my house, yes.
Your house. And so everything we're looking at in that photograph is gonna come off,
Yes, yes,
except for a connecting part on the plan that looks like it says 7 feet 3 inches.
yes,
And Roberta, that is allowed, the breezeway connection to an accessory structure is allowed at 7 feet approximately, is that?
Never enclosed.
Right, okay. Okay. All right, anybody else have any other questions? Do you have a question? No? There's no talking to yourself. Is there another photo you want to have her look for? Oh, okay.
yeah, that's.
Yeah, that one
This is
we-
what I'm gonna take off.
From there back, correct.
From here back.
Okay.
It touches my house.
All right, I think we have a good understanding of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right,
I think that's yours.
if there are no other questions by the board, Ms. Childress, you have 5 minutes more if you need them.
No, it's okay.
You don't? Okay, all right. Then without objection, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion and/or discussion. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Just jump in, you know.
I appreciate the applicant going back and making changes and getting a licensed contractor and/or designer on board to help make an unpleasant situation a little better for her. So I will make a motion and we'll see how it carries. And I believe the condition requested was that it would be run through the building department.
Yeah, it has to
All right.
meet all building codes. Got your mic? You got your mic on?
Hello.
Thank you.
And that the breezeway cannot be enclosed, the
Right.
connecting breezeway.
I move that the variance request for case VRB 2002 located at 8507 North Packwood Avenue, as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing, for a reduction in the side yard from 7 feet to 1 foot and a reduction in the eve-to-eve separation from 5 feet to 3 feet, with the following conditions: that the project be permitted through the building department and that the breezeway never be enclosed, and that said variance as condition be granted based upon the applicant presenting competent substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code. Specifically, that an existing shed was rebuilt by an unlicensed contractor and does not meet code, and the applicant has presented alternate plans to better comply with the code in a manner more compliant for an accessory structure.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion for approval by Mr. Pastor and a second by Mr. Feldman. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You've been approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just for the record, I failed to ask you to ask the applicant if she understood the conditions and accepted them for the
I'm
record.
sorry. Is it okay to do that now?
I would appreciate that.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Do you understand the conditions that the connecting roof that you're going to leave cannot be enclosed
Right,
ever?
yeah.
And that you have to obviously go through the building permitting and process and have the plans approved and all of
Okay,
that?
I'm glad, thank you, because I didn't understand that part.
Okay? So you're going to have to get a building permit.
Okay, but can I ask this question?
Sure.
Quick. In other words.
We'll have to reopen the hearing.
Oh, okay.
If she's gonna
If she's
ask.
going to ask
Yeah.
about that clarification of that?
Yeah,
I
let's
move we
just do that.
reopen the public hearing.
All right. Second, all right. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're going to reopen the public hearing for you to ask your question.
Thank you, thank you. I just wanted to know, with the breezeway, I understand that correctly. Now, this part, the part of, that was part of my house, that was there, part of, and I added on, what is gonna be with that extension? I take it down and then can rebuild it, or not?
Well, you're here tonight, on that part, you were asking for a setback relief
Right.
to 1 foot, which we approved,
Right,
okay? But how it's built is going to be between the building department and your licensed contractor and you.
uh-huh,
So if it wasn't built to code, it'll have to be rebuilt. But you can build it within a foot
oh, okay.
of the
yeah,
side yard.
Yeah, okay,
Or, yeah, is that side yard? Yeah,
All
side
right.
yard.
I understand now, thank
Okay.
you, thank you.
All right,
Very much, thank
all right.
you.
So I need to close the public hearing again?
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
All right. So are we done now?
Yeah.
All right, we're done.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it very much.
All right, next case
Yes,
is VRB 20-15.
Roberta Mead Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Address is 3706 North Ola Avenue. The case sections under review tonight is 27-156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the north side yard setback from 7 feet to 0 feet. The applicant is seeking to vest existing conditions of the north side of the structure. The project has been cited for violations of the setback under code section code case COD 19-000-1525. The property is zoned RS 50, and the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's information is included in your packet. Right-of-way and natural resources found it consistent, zoning found it inconsistent. Okay, that's your Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's information. Page 2. Variance map. Subject property is here in red. This is North Ola. Surrounding properties are RS 50. It's the front of the structure. Looking north. Looking south. This is a view of the side yard. I'm going to kind of zoom in on what that side piece is and get a better condition of what's going on here. And this is the piece in question. And how close it is to the property line. A bit better piece here. Survey. And this is the portion of the structure that is touching or at 0 lot line, front of the property. This is a historical property card, again, from the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser, dated 2011, and this is the structure that was existing. Code case. And I have nothing further to add to the record.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Seeing none. Okay, the applicant, would you please come forward and state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in?
Hi, I'm Shannon Under. My address or the property address?
Your
My
address.
address, 2423 West Sunset Drive, Tampa, Florida, and yes, I was sworn in.
Okay, good evening.
Hi, thank you for hearing me today. So I'm applying for a variance to approve the zero setback at 3706 North Ola Avenue on the north side of the house. I purchased the home in 2012, and as it exists today, as an amateur investor, I was unaware that the setback was an issue at all, and you know. Presumably the work was done by an existing owner. They added one bedroom and a bath, and I think it's approximately 300 square feet. The home was built in 1925, so I have no idea when this occurred. The home is currently rented in an annual lease, and I'm requesting the variance so I don't have to remove the addition to the home, as that would be an exceptional financial hardship. And I don't really have much other to present than what Roberta presented. I have the survey here, but I believe you guys have that already. Do I have to do anything? I'm sorry. So it's this piece right here, as I think you know. And I only have this picture, which is the actual structure that was added on. Other than that, I don't know if I can give you any more information.
Okay, does that complete your presentation?
I believe so.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak either for this application or against it? Okay, seeing none, board, do you have any questions for the applicant and or staff? Mr. Pastor.
I guess just to make it perfectly clear, the addition was there when you bought the place,
Correct.
and it's got a bedroom and a bathroom in it?
Yes.
All right.
With the addition, how many beds and baths does the house have?
It has, I believe it's 3-2. Yes, 3-2.
Sorry, one follow-up.
Yes.
Are houses in your neighborhood generally that same size, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths?
I believe so. I think there's some 2-1s and some 3-1s. I think there's a little bit of a mixture, but in general, the same square footage, I believe. It's not an overly large house for the area. There's one across the street that's a newer home that's probably close to 3,000 square feet. But I think all the others are in that same area. And may I add something? Or is it too late?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I did talk to the owner to the exact, where we share the property line, and, because he called when he got the letter and everything, and he was fine. I don't know if that matters or you take that into consideration, but he was not, his house is still his is, 7 feet or maybe even 8 or 9 from his property line, so it's not bothering him, which I was happy to hear, but just lending that.
Ms. Long?
You said that cottage, or whatever you want to call it, was there when you acquired the property, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It was the same size as it is now?
Yes, I haven't done anything to it. The only thing I've done to the house is cosmetic things, interior paint. I did some stuff with the kitchen with some of the.
But you didn't expand it add another bedroom or, okay, that's all I need to know, thank you.
I do not.
Mr. Besser, did you have no question? Mr. Feldman? Do you happen to have any photographs different than what was already presented, showing that neighbor to the side?
No, sir,
Okay.
I do not. Do you want to see those again?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to bring
Only-
that photograph
Yeah.
up,
May I?
just to give us a better understanding of what you're testifying to. We have to weigh our decision based on what we hear tonight
Okay.
or see. And see.
So, this is the neighbor who I spoke with. Sorry, can
Okay,
you hear me?
and-
Sorry.
And I
I'm
think there was
soft-spoken.
another photo taken between the
Absolutely.
structures.
There's 3 more here. So here's his house, and here's the structure.
Okay. Is there another one, or is that probably the best one?
No, there's 2 more, let me see. This one shows my property and then his house. And then this one, my property, and then his house. So he
Okay,
has full access, I mean, I guess he would anyway, but
okay. You're testifying that he's okay with it being right on the property line?
he said, yeah, because he called, he was confused about the lever. And he said, do I need to do anything about this? And I explained what it was and why, you know,
Right.
what the variance was and all this stuff. And he said, oh, he's fine with it, or, you know, it wasn't an issue for him. And he didn't even notice it before. And I
Okay,
said,
and there is no record, no survey of his property showing exactly how far away his house is that you have?
Not that I
or-
have, no.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions. Nothing else? You have five more minutes.
I did, I noticed the lady prior had a question after, so should I do that now so you don't have to reopen? Okay, yeah. I have another property that I'm trying to sell, and they won't allow the sale to go through because of the variance on this house. So I was just wondering if it is approved and all that, how does that time-wise happen? We're supposed to close at the end of the week, so I was wondering if anyone had any advice on that.
I don't know how that would be affected.
We can speak outside after this
Perfect.
matter is concluded.
Thank you.
But this property is not adjacent, is it?
No, it's not,
Okay,
not near it,
okay.
it's just because there was a violation on another property, and
Okay,
we're,
all right.
okay, thank you.
We don't need to hear about that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just.
That's all right. Okay, so do you have anything else you want to add based on the questions we asked, or?
I do not,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, all right, without objection, I'll move to close the public hearing and board motion and/or discussion.
I'll move that the variance request for case VRB 20-15 for property located at 3706 North Ola Avenue be granted as depicted on site plan presented at the public hearing to reduce the north side yard from 7 feet to 0 feet, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that the applicant has not made any modifications to the location of any of the buildings on the property, that it was acquired in this exact condition in 2012. There was a survey showing the location of the buildings in 2011, that the neighbors have not objected and have lived with this condition since at least 2011 and probably prior to that.
I'll second.
Oh, and to vest the existing conditions on the north side of the existing single-family residence.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion for approval by Mr. Feldman and a second by Ms. Long. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You've been approved.
Thank you all, I'm sending you all hugs right now. It's been a real bear. Thank you very much.
All right, our next case is VRB 20-20. It's a good year.
Yes, so that was good information. Okay.
That's mine, but you can have it if you'd like.
No, that's fine. Okay, thanks, Roberta. All right, thank you. Thank you all. Are ready to move, or do you want to wait on legal?
Oh,
We
You
have
okay?
legal.
we have
Okay.
legal.
All right, all right. All right.
Yeah, but she's only got two cases, what?
That's right, she's ready
Couple
to
of
go.
cases and she's done. She's good.
Okay, VRB 20-000020. Address is 2801 West Angeles Street. Code section under review tonight is 27156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 1.5 feet. The west side yard setback from 7 feet to 2 feet. And this is for the existing accessory structure, which exceeds 750 square feet, and that is the reason why they're asking for the primary setback reduction. Again, 27-156, the applicant is seeking to reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet to 12.5 feet, the west side yard setback from 7 feet to 3 feet, and increase the allowable overhang along the front facade from 3 feet to 4 feet for the existing primary structure. The applicant is seeking to vest existing conditions of the detached accessory structure and proposing an addition and remodeling to the primary structure. The property is zoned RS50, and the property appraiser's information is included in your packet, which is here. Right of way and natural resources found it consistent, zoning found it inconsistent. Second page of the property card, again, this is the primary structure. This is the accessory structure. Variance map. Property in question is here. West Angeles, which is the front street. Side corner yard would be along Habana. Surrounding properties are RS50. Photograph of the front of the house. Looking west. Looking east. Looking at the side, at the corner, I'm standing at Habana, looking back down Angeles. I want to look at, this is the front of the house. Again, looking from the corner. Looking from the corner, looking south. Corner yard. This is the accessory structure in the back from Habana. Site plan. Read those numbers a little bit. So again, this is the front of the house. And this is the setback request to 12 feet 5. This will be the side of the house, which again is just existing. This is the accessory structure in the back, which is existing. The side yard setback, they are doing an additional deck across here, and some walls here, but they are within the setbacks. The overhang would be here across the front door. Again, by right, they can have an overhang which overhangs into the setback 3 feet. So here we are asking for a greater extension, 4 feet. So that's why they had to ask for that as well. And I do not have anything else to add to the record.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Yeah, so just for clarification, they're coming to do some work on this property, they're looking to do some additions, and that's why they are looking to vest the existing conditions. It wasn't that they were cited for some violation existing?
Correct. There's no
Okay.
existing code violations that we have found or have been cited. They're just basically the existing structure was placed where it was when it was built. Same thing for this structure back here.
I have a question also. Since this is located on a corner lot, what would the setbacks be if it were not located on a corner lot?
I'm sorry?
What would the setbacks be if this structure was not located on a corner lot?
If it was an interior lot, it is RS 50. So the side setbacks would be 7 and 7. It's the
Okay.
same as the corner, 7
Okay.
and 7.
I don't see any other questions.
All set?
So I guess we're done for now. All right, applicant, please come forward and state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in. And if all three of you are going to speak, we'll all just do it all at once, and we'll be done with that part. Go ahead.
I'm Stephen Levy, 2801 West Angeles Street, Tampa, Florida, 33629, and I have been sworn in.
Okay, next.
Jesus Manes, I'm the general contractor for this project, and I have been sworn in.
And your address is, Jesus?
3003 Forest Front Court, Land O'Lakes, 34639.
Okay, and? Must be the designer.
I'm Ron Martinez,
There
I'm
you
the
go.
designer, and my address is 1907 South Village Avenue, Tampa.
And you have been sworn in? And you have been sworn in?
And I have been sworn in.
Okay,
And I
thank you.
apologize, I'm hard of hearing.
All right,
but
we will-
I got
we will
the
try
best
to speak
hearing
up.
aid, Nerve damage from too many years of construction, but I read lips and I'll make through.
Okay. Mr. Levy, you're up.
Yeah, so the first kind of catch-up is we were already approved in 15 for a bigger build. And in 2016 started unbelievable amount of unfortunate events. My father-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. My father with MS. Following that, my mother-in-law with cancer. Following that, my mom with diabetes. Following that, my uncle with epilepsy, and another uncle with cancer, all laid out in chronological order in the hardship letter that was provided. So as sad as all that is what has kept us from building. So we were granted by this board in 15. Those series of events started to unfold in 16, which slowed us down financially. We had a lot of support that we had to provide, and we were with a different builder than we are with now. When we had recovered from those things and learned our full variance was in the hands or the care of the builder, 25 or 30 year history this person had in the city building. When we went to the table September 26th to close on our loan, literally that day, the builder backed out on the project, citing health issues. So the next day, I kind of had an aha moment that I have no paperwork on permits or anything. So I had to track down the permit company, which I did, to find out that our variance had expired 6 days prior. So here we are starting all over again. Due to the financial setbacks, we reduced the size of the home. And so what we're coming with overall is a request for a smaller home that's been approved. We are asking for a vesting of the accessory structure, which is from 1942, I believe, was there when we bought the home. The main home was built in 1928. And so, again, our requests to the existing remodel is that, yes, the setbacks as listed are there, but we're going back on the same lines. We're not trying to extend. The only place that we're trying to extend further than where the building extends now is only on the front, and that is for 1 foot. The eaves from the primary residence to the accessory structure would be 5 feet, which I believe is the proper code minimum for eave to eave on the finished property if approved. The home currently have a 4-person family living in a 2, 1.5, so this would extend the plans of the home to be a 4, 4.5, which is consistent with that neighborhood and the size homes in that neighborhood. in terms of aesthetics, we're keeping a bungalow style, so again, it fits in with the neighborhood. And the front decking is not considered a porch. It's under 30 inches. So it is, I guess, an extended stairway porch, and we're looking for the extra foot in the front to try to get some rain/sun relief on that.
Okay. Do your experts want to say something?
Pretty much summed it up. We have some visuals of the,
Please put them on the
Okay.
monitor.
am I upside down?
Nope, you're good.
All right, so this is facing north. Is that,
Yeah, that's the one I didn't get you. I'm sorry.
well, yeah, this has
But you-
pencils
yeah,
all
yeah,
over it,
yeah,
but,
it's good enough to show.
Yep.
Sorry.
And
I'm a
then-
perfectionist, gotta be right, I'm sorry.
and then from the Habana side, looking west, taking into account the accessory structure that's existing, this pretty much summarizes the entire project. So here's the 5-foot EVU.
Like that overhang, which appears to be encroaching on the 5 feet.
There we go,
It,
here.
it ends 5 or 6 feet before the accessory structure, so we will maintain the 5-foot, fire separation.
I don't know if we have anything else that fits under the projector to show. I mean, Roberta, I think, do you have another drawing for the?
have anything else to show the drawing.
We do have others, but let me see.
Do you have a proposed floor plan
Proposed floor plan? Oh,
or proposed site plan?
This one?
no, if you want the floor, I can give you an aerial real quick of the site plan. This
Okay.
one here. Let me see.
Anything you can show us, so, or if you want to pass it to us and we can pass it around.
Yeah, let's see if we can zoom out enough on this one.
That was presented earlier. You presented that earlier, the smaller version
This, the
of
smaller
it.
version, you want the
Yeah,
smaller version?
do you have the smaller version of this one? So, Angelis is here, Habana, north, so.
Okay, I mean, we've already seen that. Is there anything else you want to show us, or?
Unless you have any questions.
Well,
in
we're
reference
gonna,
to-
we'll go through the motions here.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
you've got time on your presentation still if you
show.
need
Here's
it.
a floor plan.
Okay.
If I can add, we're not doing any work to the accessory structure. It will remain as is, and we're just adding and renovating to the main house.
Okay,
Yes. No, it's still second floor. Bless you.
can you slide, either zoom out or slide up a little bit? There you go. Okay, that's good. You want to explain to us what you're showing us?
So let's see, so this is the west side, east, north, and south. The extension of the request for the 1 foot is to cover this, this porch area that you see here. The request for the side setback goes from this area to continue the house on the same line. The back of the home extends to here, where the roof line would maintain that minimum 5-foot eave distance. nothing being done to the accessory structure, requesting that it be vested. And therefore, I believe that's why we had to request the rear setback, but again, nothing being done to that building.
Okay.
Side setback here, there is work being done, but no variance is required.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, do you have a hard copy of what you were just presenting that could be entered into the record of tonight's hearing? Because unfortunately, when people show pictures on iPads, unless we have a hard copy, it can't become a part of the record of tonight's hearing.
We have all these on 8.5 by 11, so that's what they need. Yes.
Okay.
Not blueprints. We have only the things that were part of
Hard
the,
copy of them.
Well, the floor plan matches the site plan footprint, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
we have that, yeah.
Okay, no, you've got that in the site plan's in the record.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? You got about a minute.
No, I think that was everything.
Okay. All right. I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this petition to please come forward. Seeing none, board, do you have any questions for the applicant and or staff? Mr. Pester, jump in.
So how much of the existing primary home is remaining?
In terms of square footage or like
Physically, slab, walls, what?
the whole, the footer foundation, it does have to be refortified to handle the master bedroom on the backside, so that has to be fixed. The south wall and the west wall. So the major components of the front, the west, and all of the subfloor, substructure.
Is remaining or is being removed?
It's remaining, but again, because 1/3 of it will have a second story,
Right.
they have to do something with piers and
Yeah,
stem walls.
okay.
You want to add to that,
Yeah,
Ron?
if I may, the site plan that we were just looking at,
Yeah,
I have dash lines showing existing structures.
yeah, that's what I was
And then I
looking
have different
for.
directions showing the addition, and I believe I had, it's been a while, I apologize. I believe I have square footage. There we go, thank you.
This whole thing.
No, I apologize, no, I just have proposed living area addition and
But-
existing living area.
But to answer your question, even the east existing bearing wall, but for the foundation is to remain for an interior support. So what we're doing is on the outside of the envelope on the east side, and then an extension on the north. But the rest of the foundation support system is to remain.
Okay. Do you know how old the accessory building is?
1942.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Quiet tonight. All right. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal based on the questions that you were asked.
I yield my time, thank you.
Okay. Without objection, I'm going to move to close the public hearing. Ask for a board motion and/or discussion.
I'll make a motion.
All right. So, Walker, jump in there.
All right. I move that variance request for case VRB 20-20 for property located at 2801 West Angeles Street as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction in the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 1.5 feet, the west side yard setback from 7 feet to 2 feet to vest an existing structure, and also to reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet to 12.5 feet and the west yard setback from 7 feet to 3 feet, and increase the allowable overhang along the front facade from 3 feet to 4 feet for the existing primary structure. Based upon, I approve that it be granted, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing for an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria as set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that this property, the proposed variance, merely renews a prior variance that was reviewed and granted by this board, and also that the proposed changes and renovations to the house are in conformance with the neighborhood and therefore in harmony with and serve the general purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Mr. Feldman, did
If
you
I
have-
could add just one little thing to that, maybe an addendum to that, to suggest that the existing main home structure was built in 1928, and that the accessory structure was built in 1942, and that there was no, there's been no changes to the portions that are being requested for the setback. And if that is addendum is okay with you, I'll second it.
That is perfectly fine.
Great.
All right, so we have a motion for approval with an addendum that's.
I'll second it,
and
the addendum.
You'll second the addendum, or?
I'll second the motion and the
And the
addendum, how's that?
All right, I'll get it out. All right, so we have a motion for approval by Ms. Walker and a second by Ms. Long. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You've been approved.
Is
Thank
there?
you. Thank you.
Is it?
Several rows,
All right, the next case is VRB 20-22.
Okay, address is Fort Roberta Meade Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The address is 4415 West Swan Circle North. The code section under review tonight is 27-283.11. Paren 5, paren A, paren 5, and paren A. The applicant is seeking to allow a trailer to extend past the front facade of the house. Project has been cited for work without has been cited per code section CMP 19-0016-340 and code case for the trailer, because it doesn't meet a certain code section, so I'll explain that in a minute. The property is zoned RS 75. Planning Commission's, Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's information here for your record. It's the existing structure. It's the front of the property. Front of the property again. Front looking further west. This is the front on the east side with the trailer in question. Again, closer up on the west side with the trailer. This is looking down the street to the east. Looking west. Site plan. Again, this is Swan Avenue here, Swan Circle, sorry. This is the location where the trailer is parked currently. Existing structure. And you can see the several large trees in the area. I'm going to kind of give you the section of the code which we're talking about tonight. Again, 27-283.11 regarding vehicle parking. And so we're looking at subsection A, subsection 5A, which talks about the trailer. So there are some options for when a trailer is this large. However, the code section does say a trailer at a certain distance or a certain length could be considered okay or administratively granted. However, this trailer exceeds that. So she's gonna explain that a little bit, the size of the trailer. But you see down here, if the trailer was 26 feet, she would be able to have an administrative variance versus coming into a full-blown variance. Also too, in this section, it talks about that the trailer, if there was such a vehicle, cannot extend past the front facade of the house. Go back to that site plan. So again, we'll be looking at this as a portion of the front facade of her house. Any questions?
Mr. Feldman?
Yeah, I don't know where to direct this question, whether it goes to legal or to you, Ms. McCurry, but I'm trying to figure out the goal of this section. The rule is that it can't go a certain distance beyond the front of the house. But if the trailer doesn't impede traffic, if it doesn't impede sidewalks, if it doesn't encroach a certain distance to the edge of the property, do you know how that works?
Yes. If you look at this section here, the Board of Adjustment, which means you, Variance Review Board, can authorize limitations or alterations to these following sections, with the exception of paragraph B2. Why B2? B2 because you don't want to have visual obstruction, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you can alter these items here, B1, B3, 4, and 5.
Okay. Last question. Normally, our variances run with the land. How does it work with granting of a trailer?
You were basically granting the use of, if someone has a trailer similar in size and configuration, if they want to park it in the same place.
Somebody buys this lot, somebody else gets to park their trailer there of the same size, similar size?
If it's larger than what she's going to present tonight of the size of her trailer, then yes, they'd be back in front of you with another variance.
All right, thank you.
I had a quick question about if you could put the site plan back. Those lines where it says one-story neighbor's house, two-story neighbor's house, and they have the arrows with the 90-degree angles, is that where those houses are, or is that the lot?
Maybe I'll have her explain
Okay.
what she drew here. So,
Thank
good
you.
question for the applicant.
I've got a question, maybe for transportation.
Jonathan Scott, Transportation.
Good evening, Mr. Scott. Could this trailer be parked on the street in front of their house legally?
No, we recently just passed an ordinance that it cannot be parked on the street as well.
When was that ordinance passed? I mean, like in the last 2 months or a year or what? I'm asking because we've had similar cases a couple of years ago.
The ordinance is actually pending between first and second reading. I've been asked to
okay.
make further revisions to the ordinance, but the
Okay.
intention is to prohibit the parking of RV vehicles and other larger size vehicles on streets that abut residential property.
Okay, all right. I guess my other question, maybe it relates to the new ordinance. If you have a recreational vehicle on your property and it's parked in your driveway, is that allowed?
The ordinance I'm working on only deals with parking in the right-of-way, so I will defer to staff as to what the code requires with regard to parking on private property.
Okay, so either one of you, if this property has a very, well, it seems to have a large U-shaped, or not circular, but U-shaped drive. If this were parked on the driveway, would that be allowed?
Has to meet this section of the code that we're going over right now, actually. So that's, in this case, it would not meet it. That's why they're asking for the variance.
Well, yeah, I thought we had heard cases in the past that had recreational vehicles, and I'm assuming this meets the definition of that. Maybe it doesn't. Is an RV a recreational vehicle? RV?
Yes, yes, it is. That is correct.
Okay. So right now, the ordinance says you can't park a recreational vehicle on your driveway in the front yard if it's of a certain size.
Right, it has to meet these requirements that were.
Which, well, this, and I haven't read this whole ordinance tonight, but it talks about parking in side yards and rear yards.
Correct.
And because this appears to be parked on a side yard, partially, extending into the front yard, that's why they're here.
That is correct.
Okay. So, but my question is, if the whole thing were brought into the front yard on the driveway, the ordinance would not allow that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes, confirmed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Applicant, please come forward. State your name, address, and if you've been sworn in tonight, and if you're both going to speak, I'd need both of you to do that.
My name is Jill Ricketts, 4415 Swan Circle, North, Tampa, 33609.
And you've been sworn in?
I have been.
Okay, and?
Lois Martins, 4415 Swan Circle North, West Swan Circle North, 33609, and I have been sworn in as well.
Okay, good evening.
We also have some photographs that are not in the record yet that we'd like to
Please show.
make part of the
either-
record.
Yeah.
And oh, we have copies. There's also a copy of the ordinance that we're talking about. I don't know if you all have that readily available or, okay, there's copies of that as well. So.
Okay. We're here today to request a variance to be allowed to park our trailer. It's a 34-foot trailer, parking where it has been parked since 2013. We haven't had any complaints. If we had a 26-foot trailer, it would be allowed to be parked right where it is, and it would be allowed to jut out 26 feet in front of the front fascia, facade. As it is right now, our trailer is 25 feet in front of the facade. When we received the complaint, in November, we looked at several possibilities to rectify the complaint, but were unable to come up with a satisfactory alternative that would not cause a hardship on us. We have on that side behind the trailer, we have fencing, a fig tree, pool equipment, water softener, and a pool screen patio and the air conditioner unit, all within that same side, within about 12 feet. On the west side, our sewer line runs from the backyard under the fence and along the driveway edge to the street. We have a well and our sprinkler valve boxes, fencing, and concrete greenhouse, which make the area unusable on the west side. The unique situation I'm in now is a result of the growth in the neighborhood since 1954 when my parents built the house. Our neighbor that was on the east side of us while I was growing up sold their house in the mid-'80s, and 4 houses were put up next to mine on 60-foot lots rather than the 75 that is allowed now, which means that house is quite close to my house. Back then, the setbacks were different. We're very back. We're 59 feet from the street. I'm sorry. We're 53 feet from the sidewalk. And the present setback is 25 feet from the sidewalk. So the newer houses have a setback much closer to the street. And on those pictures, you can see where we're set way back in the driveway. Because the residence is older than surrounding houses and the setbacks were greater back then, the compliance with the code to park the trailer in the back is unfeasible due to the existing structure and vegetation. The trailer is currently parked in the only feasible area where the tongue of the trailer is still set back from the sidewalk at 53 feet. It's behind the neighbor's fence at 49 feet from the sidewalk and behind the front wall of the neighbor's house at 26 feet. We purchased the trailer in 2012, and it's been parked in its current location since 2013. That can be verified on the street views on Google, excuse me. At present, it extends 25 feet in front of our home facade, and as the code is written, a trailer may be 26 feet to extend 26 feet in front of the home facade. We're asking for this variance of 8 feet. All other stipulations and requirements are met per written code. Anything you want to say?
I'd like to show these pictures.
Okay,
On the
please
screen,
do.
just so. Could they go upside down or?
Right side up.
There you go.
Okay, this is just, gives a good general view of the front yard and the, I guess, the perspective of our house there, here in the middle, or to the left of the photograph, and then the trailer and the house on the east there that's most affected by this request for the variance. And then this one just shows a little bit closer view of that. This is a couple of photographs. This is, I'll put them both here. This one shows the 6 feet distance between their fence and the trailer, and then this shows that this is fairly close to our house on this side as well.
Back at this corner of our.
Yeah, this is a very back corner of the house, and then the pool patio is right, it starts right there at that corner, and then this is this area juts out, and then this is the facade that we're talking about, juts out another 5 feet as you go further east to the house. You can see that on this one, kind of where this brick wall, half wall is there. That's another, there's a little porch, little 5-foot porch there that comes out. And then this is just a photograph showing, or 2 photographs. This is looking east to show that the house, it is the house that's that much ahead of the tongue of the trailer, which is right about here. And then the house on the west side also, the front of it is right out here, as you can see. So that it's, the uniqueness of it is that since everything else has moved forward, we're in a little pocket that's set back. And when the house was built and the pool was added in the 50s and 60s, that all of the equipment around the house and everything was set back farther, so that it makes it just not feasible to try and move the trailer back on either side, really, because of the things that are already there. The diagram of the site plan. So that is what we were trying to show on here. These are the neighbors' houses. This is the back of our house. The 1, 2, 3, like 4 houses that go on around the corner to the west are all set up or all moved up that far, and then to the left, or to the west also, they've all been built, torn down the 50s and 60s ranch homes have all been torn down, and now the big houses that have moved forward because the lots are getting narrower. I guess they have to move the houses forward to put what they need in the backyard because they're so much narrower. And we do have a lot of, these are all big oak trees here, and quite a few palm trees all around that have been there since, since Jill's parents built the home there, so.
We do have a list of all the,
10 neighbors that signed a
that
list
sign that
here.
they don't.
Okay, would
have
you
any
like to
problem.
submit those to the board for the record?
Yes, please.
Okay, please.
Including the one neighbor on the west side of the
Okay.
property.
You still have about a minute
What else,
left.
Jill? Anything else?
You
And
wanna-
looking at the code, the ordinance, what we were looking at, we were reviewing it this morning again because of I don't know, we hadn't read it in a month or so since we filed, so we're going over it. But what we noticed was under B, 5B, if it's not feasible to park a vehicle or craft in accordance with the provisions of this subsection A, then it gives certain things that you all can make an administrative, whatever she said before. Anyway, so one is that it is set back, like we said, 53 feet from the sidewalk, backside of the sidewalk there.
Okay, you have a
It's
few
not-
seconds. Can you wrap up?
We check off, you can check off 1 through 5. We meet every
Yeah.
one of those
Okay.
criteria.
Okay, let's,
Thank you.
okay, that'll end your presentation. We're going to see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this application. If so, please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
Good afternoon, Brad Goist. My address is 4413 North Swan Circle. I am the guy right to the east that the trailer feels like it's parked on, right on my house.
Okay, have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you.
I'll show you some pictures, but I wrote this down just so I'll read it to you.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I bought the house in 2017. The trailer's been parked there. Probably is parked there 360 out of 365 days. As I read the code, it's in direct violation. It is gigantic, 34 feet, it's 10 feet tall, sits almost against my fence. I'm going to show you some photographs in a minute. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't block any of their windows, but it looks right out the side of my window of my family room. I look right at the side of this thing. I'm not sure why they've never applied for a variance in the past, but the fact is, it has been sitting there. I didn't understand that this was a code violation. As soon as I found out it was, I felt like I was going to come here. I also think with hurricanes around here, it's like having a mobile home sitting next to you. And I don't think from a safety standpoint, it's great that it sits there. Anybody else who had anything this size would be parking it, I guess, in an RV park or storing it if it was a boat. In my opinion, there's been no hardship that's been identified here for this property. There's no legitimate reason that I should have to live next door to an RV, especially one of this size. I don't see any hardship. And there's a code for a reason. Let me just show you a few pictures, because I don't think what they showed you with the drawing is actually really depict. They show you in the drawing like this thing comes all the way back to where this juts out. You can see it doesn't. They also tell you there's a fence. The fence is completely rotted. And they say there's a fig tree. This fig tree is about as dead as any tree that you can see. There's the fig tree. You notice their window isn't blocked and the one over here isn't blocked. This is the view that I get to see every day from my bedroom. another view. You can see their windows aren't blocked, just mine. Here's a view from my living room. Here's another view. And I guess in closing, I just say, you know, I hate to be the one here as the neighbor, but there got to be codes for a reason.
Okay,
And-
can you wrap up, please?
I'm wrapped up.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, would you like those pictures entered into the record of the hearing?
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak either for or against the application? Thank you very much. Okay, seeing none, board, do you have any questions for anyone?
Yeah, let me.
Mr. Feldman.
I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions tonight. Let me start with Ms. McCurry. I see that the neighbors' houses are set a lot closer than the applicant's property to street level. Street level is not the right, to the front setback of the property. What is the distance required for front setback in this location?
Again, I'm not aware of what the zoning is. Let's say, as the applicant testified, it's RS 60
Okay,
to here, then it would be 25 foot for the front. If it was RS 75 like hers is, and maybe the RS 75 is here, I can verify that, but I don't have that right now. It would be, again, 25 feet to the front.
do you know what do you know where the house is set back currently as it's built? The front of the house?
On her property?
Yeah, it's definitely further than 25 feet, I would
Correct.
assume, right?
Mhm. Yes, it
Do you have
definitely
any idea how far setback it is?
I do not.
Okay, so let's assume that the neighbors are built to the setback, and that this applicant decided that they wanted to knock down their house and build their house up to the legal setback that they're permitted to build to. If they left their trailer in the same location and built the house forward, would they comply with this ordinance?
Provided the side yard
Yep.
met
Yep.
the
So
7
just,
foot
so just,
setback.
that's a great point. Just take the front of this house, that front corner there that protrudes next to the trailer, stretch that forward. If that were to stretch forward towards where they're legally allowed to build, that would allow them essentially to have their trailer in exactly the same spot.
That would become the side yard, yes, sir.
Right, so they would be parked in their side yard, further behind where the front of their house is.
Correct.
So by virtue of the fact that their house is set back to where it is, that's what's actually causing this ordinance to trip, right?
Correct.
Is there any, assuming, forget all that, if they could comply with the ordinance, is there any distance required between where the trailer would be permitted and the side yard setback? Can they park it up to a foot away? Can they park it up to 5 feet away? What's the distance required, if any?
And I believe it states it here in the ordinance or the code section. 0
Parked or
feet.
stored a minimum of 0 feet, so they could park it right on the line? All right. If we were to be inclined to grant this, can we condition approval based upon location of where it is parked? That's a question for legal, I guess.
So typically, when this board is asked to rule on variances, if action is taken, we always recommend that the approval be as depicted on the site plan for that exact
Okay.
reason.
All right, so it would be, as we have a site plan, we have a location of where it's parked on the site plan, we would condition it upon that site plan, just as we normally would.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Long, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question. Oh, no, I don't have a question.
You don't have a question?
No, I'll wait.
All right, Ms. Walker.
I have a question for legal. Within the definition as set forth in the code, is it feasible to park this vehicle pursuant to subsection 5A?
That would be a question for staff.
Staff.
Okay, repeat your question, because all I can hear is the hammer dribble.
Yeah.
Gotta speak up.
I need
As
to,
set forth in the ordinance, so section 5B is applicable if it's not feasible to meet section 5A. Is it feasible to meet section 5A?
is it feasible to meet section 5A?
My concern, or I guess my hesitation, is that in theory, you could knock down the fence in the backyard and move the trailer back, and knocking down the fence would not require a permit.
Correct, and I think she stated hardship why she couldn't get the trailer into the rear yard. That was what she had presented to us was her hardship, and I think maybe, but if she wanted to meet 5A, she could park the car in the rear yard, park the RV in the rear yard. And as you can see, it can be parked or stored a minimum of 0 feet from any and all other property lines, again, being the rear side yard. If it's going to be parked on the corner yard, then it has to meet this criteria.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Wonker?
For now, yes.
For now. Ms. Hurtak, do you have anything? Mr. Feldman, back to you.
Follow-up question, because I think Ms. Walker was asking a great question. And I think this is actually a legal question again. Who determines whether whether it's feasible or not to meet under Section A? Who makes that determination about feasibility? Is that something that has happened already?
I know the legal department doesn't make that determination.
Okay.
I would submit that the applicant would have to present that evidence to zoning staff as to whether or not it's feasible. And I suspect that would have been part of the conversation with the code enforcement.
Right, because what we're
complaint that
being
was
asked to
initiated.
evaluate is Part B, which presumes that feasibility is not an issue.
And I think those are good questions to the applicant as to why it's not feasible.
Okay. All right, well, let's ask that today.
Oh,
Did you want to ask those?
I have one more question for legal or staff. So subsection C allows us to vary the limitations of subsections B1, 3, 4, and 5 to the and not B2. If the applicant meets subsections B1, 3, 4, and 5 such that there's no need to vary them, are we allowed to vary subsection A?
The language in C is that a variance can be granted to B1, 3, 4, and 5 to the extent they meet the criteria in section 27-80, which is your standard hardship criteria, and if they meet the 5 separate hardship.
I guess my question is that it appears that even without a variance, subsections B1, 3, 4, and 5 are met.
But A is not. The variance that is being requested is to subsection
Oh, sorry.
A5A.
No, 5 is not met. I guess we could, in theory.
Yeah, she's not meeting 5A, therefore she's here, they're here.
Well, there was a question about whether
Yeah.
she meets
Oh,
5A,
okay.
I guess. But okay, all right. That's all I have.
Okay. And then,
Do you have another question?
yeah, well, let's ask the applicant
Okay.
some questions about that. If you wouldn't mind coming back up. You two did a wonderful job explaining this, by the way. I appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit, explain a little bit about, the hardship as to why it needs to be where you're parking it, as opposed to making some modifications, moving things back. I know you talked a little bit about the fence, about the tree, about the other equipment. I know you spent a good amount of time on that during your presentation. But your neighbor came up and showed some photos that suggested that the fig tree is dead, that there's problems with the fence, other things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then, just to make sure we cover all our bases, explain why or why not it could not be placed somewhere else on your property. Like on the other side, for instance.
In that area, right behind the trailer, we have the air conditioner, the water softener, the pool filter, the motor, all the underground stuff that goes with a pool, the pool patio screen, and the fig tree that is not dead, but it is, he did take pictures in the winter. All fig trees lose their leaves in the winter, and it is just now popping out leaves. Still produces figs, something my father planted back 65 years ago. And I just don't feel like I want to cut that down. To park it anywhere else, there is nowhere else to park it. I explained on the other side, the west side, I've got the sewer that runs from the backyard. I've got my well there. I have my, all of my sprinkler valve boxes. And I have a greenhouse, a concrete greenhouse that won't allow me to pull it into the backyard anyway, but I can't run over any of that, the other equipment. If I got rid of this trailer at 34 foot, I'll get a 26 foot because that's allowed. I'm asking just for 8 feet to allow that to jut past the front of my facade. And if you want to look at the facade of the front of the house versus the facade that's on my carport on the west side, it juts out another 8 feet. So which is the front of my house? I've got the front of my living room, I've got the front of my dining room that juts out another 5 feet, and then I've got my carport that juts out another 3 feet. So.
And I'll add to that, on the west side of the house is that old terracotta, the sewer line is an old terracotta sewer line, and we've been told by, not only by city workers who've done work when we've had sewer problems there, that they would never drive a vehicle over that because it's too heavy and the sewer line's not buried deep enough to be of that construction.
Is that dotted line that shows up on your site plan there, that dotted line with the S on it?
Yeah, could you put that
Do you
site
see
plan back up and leave it
the,
up while we ask these questions? You can point,
This is our driveway.
so that,
There you go.
that
That's
S
the
dotted
driveway,
line.
yes, and that dotted line with the S on it, that's the sewer line.
Okay, so you're saying you couldn't drive
We
the
can't
trailer
back
over
the-
that
it's-
sewer line?
It's, yeah, about 10,000 pounds, and they said
Okay.
that's just too much.
All right, thank you.
And a couple of other things too, that we did go to trim that fig tree a few days ago, and ended up taking off the branch that still, when the branch fell, still had more buds on it, and, so we stopped and said, well, let's let it bud out and see what's gonna grow and what's dead, and then we'll trim the dead stuff off, but not the what's still alive. Another thing I wanted to say about the, not seeing the trailer outside of our windows when, there are 2 bedrooms right there on that side of the house. Both of those windows that you saw in the other pictures that Mr. Goist showed were bedroom windows. And since the neighbor's house there was built in the mid-80s, we've had to keep, Jill's mom was there before, but we moved in 1991, and we always keep the shades drawn in there because the house is right there. The balcony to the bedroom upstairs looks right into those bedrooms, and we don't even open those windows anymore. except to crack the shade during the daytime and let a little bit of light in. Because it's just so visible, the inside of the house is so visible from the, especially from the second floor of the neighbor's house, so.
Okay. Ms. Mead Curry, could you, I hate to have you put that site plan back up, but I want to get clarification, because, okay. On the 5A definition of the front facade, I think you explained to us in your staff report, and maybe you can point for me, the front of the existing one-story house that 5A is referring to is which line?
Which line?
Yeah, which line on that
Technically,
drawing
the
is
mini-
5A
minuscule
referring
point-
to?
The minuscule point of that corner could technically be the front facade.
Well,
Okay.
but it says, let me read it to you, and maybe I'm totally misunderstanding it. It says,
What do you
it shall be parked or stored no closer to the front property line than that portion of the front facade of the principal structure which is the farthest distance from the front property line.
Okay, what
So-
line are you reading if I could follow?
Oh, it's 5A, excuse me. It's the second sentence, I guess. So, I'm just, I mean, I want to be sure the board totally understands what that farthest distance from the front property line refers to on the site plan. Because for me, it's important to know, because even though I've heard testimony about why they can't park it on the west side, I'm still looking at the west side as a potential place, but I want to understand the definition of 5A. Can you help us?
Okay, so you're looking at paren 5A,
Yeah?
okay, and you're reading this section right here.
No, it's the first
Nope.
paragraph.
First paragraph.
Yeah, go up, go up.
Line-
No, go
Nope.
up, go up.
First paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says, however, see where it says however in the
And
second line?
line 2?
It shall be parked or stored no closer to the front property line than that portion of the front facade of the principal structure which is the farthest distance from the front property line. Not the closest.
Okay.
It's not, the closest, I would agree with you, would be the point of the carport.
Yes, technically.
Is that correct? The closest would be the carport point?
That would, to be considered, yes.
Okay, but this is saying the farthest.
Right.
So
Could be the flat
this
side
is
of
an
it.
odd-shaped floor plan. How does the staff define which facade wall are you measuring from? And does it matter? It seems like 5A, it doesn't matter if it's parked on the right side or the left side of the front facade.
Yeah, so if it is the farthest point, then the farthest facade point would be back here.
So even though the house jogs back and has a side wall and goes back what looks like about 10 feet or so, it then comes back over, and that short wall faces the street. So you're saying this entire trailer, per the site plan, is in front of that defined front facade? Or is a portion of it only in front? Because that's the testimony we're hearing from the applicant.
I mean, I'll look at it as how we divide, sometimes we do look at property. Okay, so let's say this piece of the house was the piece of property. So sometimes we determine that this whole thing is the side yard.
Right,
So we could determine that whole thing as the side of the house.
right.
Might
Which,
take the same.
yeah,
argument.
which seems to
So
be the
then,
testimony.
From that point here would be the farthest point of the front facade.
Okay, all right. And so even if the trailer were parked on the other side of the house, that's the line that you would draw or extend across and measure from?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Because I'm trying to understand if the other issues they testified, hardships, issues, sewer line, greenhouse, weren't there, could they park there and help themselves? But it doesn't sound like it.
They're stating that this is the hardship.
Well,
because of
they're
the
citing
existing-
reasons why they can't park over there, but I'm just trying to understand 5A's definition of the front facade. And I think you just explained it for me. So that was my big question. I think we had my other question already asked. Anybody else have anything?
I have one more question.
Okay.
Would it require a permit to remove a portion of the screened patio as shown on this site plan. Because
Again.
if it requires a permit, then it arguably is not feasible to meet 5A, and 5B would be applicable.
Again, I don't have the dimensions of how our pool equipment and our other mechanical equipment is here. And I don't know what that distance would be.
If I may respond actually to the conversation about the applicability of 5A or 5B, the variance that's been noticed for consideration tonight is with regard to subsection A5A. That is the section that they are seeking a variance from.
Okay.
With regard to B, the feasibility, I will note that in B5, it requires the length of the vehicle to be no more than 26 feet. The applicant has testified that the length of the vehicle is 34 feet, so I submit to you that B is not applicable.
Okay.
And I would focus your attention on the variance that they're requesting under 5A.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you
May
very
I
much.
May I ask a question?
Well, wait. Ms. Long, do you have a question now?
Yes, I do. I have a question. On 4, the statement is, the vehicle may only be parked within the front yard on an existing driveway area which was designed and intended to provide ingress and egress of vehicular traffic from the street. I look at this, you have a gravel drive that's circular and then extends up on the west side, I guess, to the carport and thing. But that's just grass that it's sitting on. I mean, even the pictures show that it's just sitting on grass.
Yeah.
The driveway is here, and it's over here. So it has
Okay,
nothing
but-
to do with the,
But legal just explained to us that we're not.
Section B is not
Section B is
applicable.
not in play.
I'm not dealing with B, I'm dealing with,
No, 4 is B. It's under B. It's B4.
okay,
Yeah,
so we
it's
just
under
wipe that
B4.
whole section
Yeah.
out?
Well, they didn't notice for a variance under that section, but under 5A.
Only under 5A.
Only
And
under
that,
5A.
that area that it's parked on the grass extends like up from the,
It extends, pardon?
it extends up from the, because how we park it in there is to come in the west side and then back it into, this
Okay.
part of the driveway.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
really become
Yeah,
a jutting off.
Yeah, I think you've done a good job of explaining the hardships that you're dealing with.
I
You
have another
you have
question.
Okay.
Yes. It said it should, 5A.
Okay.
It says it shall be screened from the street right of way with a 6-foot-high solid fence or hedge. I don't see either of those.
No, there's not.
Okay.
Okay. Is that a question or is that a statement?
They agree, there's nothing there.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal based on the questions that were asked. If there's anything you want to maybe help us understand that you don't think we understand or clarify something that was said, but you have 5 minutes.
I do?
Yes, you do. You have 5 minutes
I
if
have
you
one
need them.
question. Is it possible to amend the variance request to include the, if it's not feasible with 5A, to apply 5B?
5B, I think legal can give you
Or
a
do we
direct
have to
answer on that.
reapply for another variance?
It's not possible
hearing?
to amend the variance during the hearing tonight.
Okay.
I
Possibly with
can't
an
advise you
appeal?
on whether or not it's to your benefit to request a continuance and renotice. What I would
No,
submit,
that's
however, everybody keeps focusing on subsection 5B, but 5B is applicable if the length of the vehicle is no more than 26 feet. The testimony provided consistently during this evening's hearing is that the vehicle is 34 feet in length. So I submit that that section is not applicable.
Okay.
But
But
isn't
no.
that specifically a section that the Board of Adjustment is authorized to vary, specifically B5?
If they notice that.
No,
No?
no.
Oh,
I mean, yes, but that's not what she's saying. I don't,
In section C there, it says the Board of Adjustment is authorized to vary the limitations set forth in subsections B1, 3, 4, and 5, which says to me that you could vary the length, you could grant a variance in length if we were to apply for that, but I don't know if that's what that means or not.
Roberta Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination, that is our understanding of the code, that they are to say they can't park per this section. It does reference 5B down here, and that's where your play is, why we're here tonight is because of 5B. That's my understanding, and in hopes that, we had asked a question in regards to feasibility. Feasibility is defined, if you saw the asterisk under feasibility, feasibility is defined here.
And again, the only other point that I'd like to make is if I were to get a 26-foot, another trailer, a 26-foot, I would not be required to back it up as far as I have it backed up now. I'm only out 25 feet in front of the facade, as opposed to a 26-foot trailer, I'm allowed to pull it all the way out front. I'd like to just ask for the variance for the extra feet as opposed to having to go get another trailer.
Okay. I'm gonna pause your 5 minutes. There still seems to be, in my mind, some difference between the two of you on whether we're able to use 5B tonight. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Down to the last drop. No.
Did a pretty decent job not becoming fatter like me, so that's
Good for you.
I feel like I've just taken the Florida bar exam for, the nth time in analyzing the criteria. So Roberta Mead Curry and Kamaria Pettismackle and Eric Cotton was on the phone. We discussed the history of this section, and it was when the application first came in, and Eric Cotton had actually met with Kathy Coyle before she left to discuss this. And it was staff's interpretation of the code that because of the location of the trailer not being within the zoning front yard, regardless of where the principal structure is located, but when you look at the zoning district and where your front line is allowed to be, and the trailer was behind that, because of the location, it was their recommendation that they seek a variance through 5A as opposed to 5B. So that's how we arrived at this point. I will say this is old language because it refers to the Board of Adjustments authority and not the Variance Review Board's authority, and I think probably staff is going to be recommending that we clarify this language to not run into this issue again. But
Okay.
This has been noticed for this evening from 5A. I believe they've addressed the criteria in support of their request. It's up to the board to determine whether you've heard competent substantial evidence. But this is properly before you for consideration of a variance from that section.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, applicants. Did you leave? No, you're here. Come back up. I cut you off on your 5-minute rebuttal. You still have about 4 minutes. If you want to add anything, you can. If not, you can say thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so without further objection, I will close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion and/or discussion.
I know it is preferable to start with a motion, but I think some discussion is warranted first. I just want to talk about my perception of this, and I thought I was fairly clear when I asked the questions. It seems like this is an applicant that's getting caught up in a technical hardship here, because their house, if they had knocked it down and built their house in a rectangle and built it up closer, they could park it exactly where they're parking it. And your question was an interesting one, Mr. Brown, because you asked about the oddly shaped house, which to me feels a whole lot like an oddly shaped property, which is a classic definition of hardship that we grant all the time. And so,
sounds like a motion.
With that in mind, I'm in favor of supporting it.
Does anybody else want to say anything, or would you like to make a motion?
I'll give it a shot, but Ms. Hurtak might have some. Did you have a comment, or
Ms. Hurtak?
No, I agree with you.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I'm laughing because this one's going to be hard to do.
Yes, you're right.
Well,
it is. All right.
The only thing, before you do this, the only thing I'm going to add to that,
Yeah.
because you referenced if they knock the house down, they don't even have to knock the house down. If they add it onto the front of the house,
But that little corner piece.
if they added on just to the front of the house
Right.
that we talked about earlier and came out to a point per 5A where no more than 1/3
Yeah.
of that recreational vehicle stuck past it, they would meet 5A.
Yeah.
So they don't have to knock the house down. They could just add on to the front of their house.
And I don't think that's what we should be
No, and that's
encouraging
not,
people to do.
no, that's not
Right.
our
Right.
purview. I'm just saying that it's not even as bad as knocking your house
Yeah.
down, okay?
All right. So I would move that the variance request for case VRB 20-22 for property located at 4415 West Swan Circle North be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing to continue parking the 34-foot trailer RV in the current location at the east side front yard as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that we have an oddly shaped residence where the front of the residence juts in disparate ways, that we have a residence that is set back a significant distance from the permissible front yard setback, and that if that residence were, the front of that residence were pushed forward up to the applicable and permissible front yard setback, this would not be an issue before us. So considering that, as well as the inability to park this vehicle further back as the residence is currently situated, based upon structural, based upon sewage lines and existing trees, fences, patios, and concrete greenhouses and other things, the applicant has met the hardships.
All right, I have a motion for approval. Is there a second? Who was that? Was it Ms. Walker? Okay, so we have a motion for approval and a second by Ms. Walker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, you've been approved 5-1. You're done. All right, next here case is VRB 20-23.
Okay, Roberta Mead Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The address is 4102 West Corona Street. Code section under review this evening is 27-156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet. The applicant is proposing an addition and remodel of existing single-family residence. The property is zoned RS60, and Hillsborough County property appraiser information is included in your packet. Right away, Natural Resources has found it consistent, transportation consistent with conditions. Zoning has found it inconsistent. Property appraiser information, page 2. Variance map. Property in question is located here. Clark Avenue is here. Corona Avenue is here. Surrounding property is RS60. This is the front of the structure. Looking east. Looking west along Corona. Corner yard along Clark. Again, further on the corner yard. Looking south on Clark. Looking north on Clark. Survey. Corona is here, Clark here, again the side yard is here. Where they're looking to add is out on Corona and add here. The applicant has purchased additional land to the west to mitigate some of his addition and not have to ask for additional variances. You'll see that here, the cleaner site plan of the proposed addition. Again, this is the additional portion of land they just purchased. This is Clark, Corona, front yard. Addition is here, existing house here, existing porch, and they're adding on a portion here with this portion of the front porch to be enclosed. Applicant is going to discuss floor plan, existing and proposed, but again, this is the addition here, new porch, remodeling some of the areas in here. I do have one clarification to add to the record, and we'll ask the applicant to clarify, but we did want to put on the record that there was some information stated in the hardship regarding the properties along Corona. I'll pull that up. In the hardship, they stated these properties, the way it reads, it sounds like each of these properties had a variance. There is no variance on record for any of these properties, and most of the properties were built in 1947. I have one or two in 48, and I have at least 3 of them built in 1950. I have one built in 1993, one built in 2007, and one built in 2016. The record I could find for 2016 was for 4015 Corona, which states a reduction of 7 feet. Again, the permit pulled for that, it was to meet the criteria at 25 feet. So we just wanted to clarify those, that we want to make sure that the applicant, if he can present how he maybe measured those items, or clarify how he came to those dimensions. We just want to make sure that the board understands that no variances were requested or are on record to place those houses where they are. Okay? They were built that way. Any questions of me?
Yes, I do. It's RS 60.
Correct.
And by right, in an RS 60, an applicant can ask for a front yard setback reduction of an open porch. But because a portion of their proposed addition is enclosed, that extends the front of the primary structure. I get that. But if they were only doing the porch, they could come to the board and ask for up to what, 7 feet?
8 feet. They can go 8 feet. Mhm.
Okay, they could ask for 8 feet, okay. And this is a 7? Yeah, this is 7 foot, okay, all right, that was my question. Anybody else? Okay. Applicant, please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
All right, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is James Goodwin. I live at 4102 West Corona Street, and I have been sworn in.
Okay, good evening.
So, I'm requesting this front yard setback be moved from 25 feet to 18 feet to support a home addition. About 8 years ago, my family and I, we moved from Robins Air Force Base to McDill Air Force Base, where I work, and we purchased this structure as it is. What we didn't know, as about a month after closing, we were pregnant with our 3rd daughter. So for that reason and several others that I won't extend this hearing for, the home is just no longer tenable or suitable. So we need to do this about a 600 square foot addition that Ms. Roberta discussed earlier. So we need to convert our 3-bedroom, 2-bath home into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. And to minimize any impacts on adjoining neighbors, like what was previously stated, we purchased 13 feet on the western side. And to make sure that we could maintain that 7-foot setback along the entire western portion. So this project will be in conformance on the west, south, and east sides. But due to the configuration, which I'll discuss in a moment, we do need to extend one portion of it 7 feet over the current setback. So I think it's a fair point. As was mentioned earlier, this area is zoned RS 60, but this lot has always been 50, 55 feet wide. But again, it predates the current code. So I would say, by purchasing that 13 feet, extending the lot or widening it to 68 feet, I think we've already improved the neighborhood by, bringing this lot into conformance. The unique hardships and practical difficulties requiring this variance are due to the conditions of the existing structure and the existing layout of the structure. So approximately 90% of the addition will be in conformance with all setbacks. However, this small portion requires a variance. So we hired 2 architects over time. We've had time to work through this, and we've explored multiple options in an attempt to avoid needing any variance, as fun as it is. And but due to the layout of the existing structure and available land, without this variance, there's just really no feasible way to add the needed rooms in a reasonable manner that maintains the functionality of the home, the value to the neighborhood, and also we're considering, where the windows and making sure that we have windows for fire safety standards. So more specifically, in order to gain access to the new piece of construction, an access hallway has to be constructed through the portion of 1 bedroom and through 1 closet, which results in that bedroom being negated, loss of closet, and as well as the exterior structure consuming that entire exterior wall, which means there's no window, there's no more fire escape, so we're wanting to make sure we maintain fire safety. So with that, those practical difficulties make it really impossible to only add 1 bedroom and 1 bath. So therefore, we have to add 2 bedrooms onto the outside of the home. So due to our recent land purchase, this addition will make sure that we conform to all the setbacks on the west side and not encroach on the only adjacent property there, as we are a corner lot. And also, no trees or other natural features will be affected by this addition, and we have really made genuine efforts to minimize any needed variances. As was mentioned earlier with those other addresses, and I have more that I have brought tonight if needed, but multiple homes in our neighborhood sit closer to the street than what we are asking for here, which is the 7 feet reduction in the front yard. There's multiple homes that sit 7 or 8 feet closer. Some sit 9 to 12 foot closer. And so, again, that just goes to the character of the neighborhood, the flow along the street. Without the special tools that the city has with GIS measurements, all we can really do as residents is just look at the view from the road from the center line of the street. And so what we did is just measured from that center line, just so that you guys could have an understanding of how the sight lines down Corona or San Luis or Tacone, in our general neighborhood flow. So we obviously don't have access to variance records or anything of that nature. It was really just to say that it's a reduction in that distance from the street through the front yard. Furthermore, we would have preferred, actually a 10-foot variance, because that would have given us some extra space to add some features for our growing family. However, we really took a hard look at the floor plan and the layout and really tried to minimize the impact as much as possible, and we sort of hit rock bottom at 7 feet. The hardships and practical difficulties are really not due to any actions by us as homeowners, but again, due to the existing structure and placement on the lot. The current structure was built in 1950 and is existing as we purchased it 8 years ago. So we have investigated multiple other solutions with experts, and we found that any other course of action would really be substantially more burdensome and unreasonable. So additionally, the variance, if granted, should not interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding properties. As I stated, we made good faith effort to purchase land to make sure that we did not have to request any side yard variance. And I also have signed statements from all the homeowners in my immediate area. Again, with the 250 radius map, I went door to door to try to contact, speak with them, brief them on the site plan, show them what our aspects was, and try to garner their support. So I'll enter it into the record. I have approximately 20 signatures here, everyone that I could get a hold of. And everyone was in support of what we were trying to do and believes that it will improve the value of the neighborhood. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll wrap it right up. I firmly believe that our planned addition will blend seamlessly into the neighborhood, and the sightlines and flow along Corona Street will not be noticeably altered or disturbed. And this approval of this variance will allow us to not only make a positive investment in improving the functionality and livability of our home, but also add to the curb appeal and charm of the structure to the benefit of the entire neighborhood. So I believe we have submitted a reasonable site plan that resolves our unique hardships and increases the value of not only our home, but the community and the neighborhood. And the one last piece I'd like to point out is in the photos that were shown to you earlier, you see there's very large shrubs. Some of them are 20, 30 feet high. Those shrubs and those hedgerows extend in some places 13 feet beyond the front of the home towards the street. All of that would be removed. And again, we're asking for the 7 feet to allow for that structure to be added. So again, removing the existing shrubbery and all that place in the home the way that we need here will actually improve sight lines and the visibility down the street. So thank you very much for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Before we go there, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this application? Seeing none, for questions for the applicant or staff?
Did you bring any of the alternate plans that you mentioned?
No, we didn't. We submitted the floor plan as you've seen it here this evening. Any of the other ones, again, resulted in rooms that were well below what's customary to the neighborhood. So you would start getting into very small rooms, or there's nowhere to put closets. And then we also considered potentially a second story, but again, the experts going through our current home, it's not structurally sound to where it can support a second story, would require extensive modification, and this home addition price goes up 2.5 times. And again, we're only trying to add about 600 square feet. We don't need to double our home size to an additional 1,600, but nonetheless, those are the types of options we considered.
Okay, the reason I ask is because it looks like your architect could very easily move the entire addition 7 feet south, property south, and get you everything you're trying to get. I mean, it really looks that simple to me. I'm an architect. The shape of the walk-in closet might become squarer, but you probably would have the exact same number of square feet that you're proposing. I don't, the reason I ask for alternate plans, we often ask for that to see what doesn't work. In my mind, I see a plan that can maintain the front of the house as it is today and give you every single square foot you're asking for with the same hallway connection and everything. So did they look at that?
So I will point out one thing. Would you like me to
Yeah.
use the monitor? Some things that may not be clear in the drawing. Is that situated appropriately?
Yeah, sure.
So the issue really becomes the home as it is the piece that I haven't mentioned thus far is this part is on a crawl space and this part is on a slab.
Okay.
So this house is really divided in that manner. And it creates a pretty large drop down, which you wouldn't want in the center of a bedroom or anything like that.
So you're saying the floor in the existing home has a step there?
Yes, it's a significant step down because
Yeah.
you're going from a 2-foot crawl space to slab. And
Got
that's
it.
something that happened prior to us purchasing the home, and that runs right through here.
Mm-hmm.
So the home is divided this way. The other piece is there is a window, existing window here in the master bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
If we slide this structure back, it's not just the closet that gets removed. There's no window in the bathroom, and the bathroom cannot be extended or utilized in that way. So again, that's why we cut it in here, again, trying to minimize any addition, but sliding this back alters windows, as well as the access here, and it brings this step-down foundation piece into the center of this room. So for cost purposes, and again, trying to, again, do the right thing, and minimize the impact on us as homeowners, this room needs to start here going forward, because that's where the difference in foundation is. And secondly, sliding it backwards, we remove all window access in the bathroom. And so, really, you're correct in this piece here not being, could be altered, but it's really the bathroom and the foundation piece that drove the decisions, as well as the additional cost. And I didn't mention that earlier, but I'll put that in for clarification.
Okay.
No, I think we've all had enough fun this evening, but I definitely appreciate your time, and I appreciate your consideration of approving or granting this variance. Thank you.
I'll make a motion. Move the variance request for case VRB 2033 for property located at 4102 West Corona Street, Tampa, Florida, be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction in the front yard from 25 feet to 18 feet, section 27156. With an encroachment for eaves and gutters based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering 5 criteria hardships set forth in section 2780 of the city code. Specifically, the house has 2 levels. One is slab on grade and the other is crawl space. So there's a difference in the height of the floors from one side to another. The family has outgrown the current home and cannot afford another home sufficiently large enough for their family. They have spoken with numerous neighbors, and they all are in agreement with the improvement, with the new addition.
I think you might have started VRB 2033. Meant 23.
2023.
2023, right.
2023. That front porch, I wanted to ask him if he would keep it open forever.
I guess
Do
the
you want to
question.
amend it, or?
No, I
'cause
guess.
Otherwise, we'd have to open.
No, I guess the question is, and maybe this is a quick question for legal. We have an unenclosed front porch depicted on the site plan. Do we need to specify that it must be unenclosed, or is it clear from the site plan?
For the site plan.
I believe it's clear from the site plan. It shows it as an open front porch, and since the variance is as depicted on the site plan, it would be with those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that settles it. Okay.
Okay, so we have a, excuse me. We have a motion. Motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Ms. Hurtak. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? You've been approved.
Have a good time.
Okay, next, VRB 20-25.
Okay, Roberta Mead Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The address is 5001 West Dickens Drive. The code section under review this evening is 27156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the rear yard from 20 feet to 7 feet. The applicant is proposing an addition and remodel of existing single-family residence. The property is zoned RS 75. Property appraiser's information is included in the record. Right-of-way and right-of-way found it consistent. Natural resources is consistent with conditions. Zoning is found it inconsistent. Property appraiser's page 2. Variance map. Property is located here. Dickens is located along this way. Homer Avenue goes here and it turns into Dundee. This is an unusual shaped piece of property. The historical front would be here with the address, but we have deemed it as the front here per zoning. The front is here, which means the rear is here, side yard is here. This would be the corner yard. Okay. This is the front of the property, again, this view. Looking south along Dickens at the corner. Looking west, going down Dundee. Looking west along Dundee. Corner yard, again, that's turning into Dickens. This is the front of the home on Dickens. Close-up of the rear yard where the addition will be taking place. And then the other side yard, again, trying to show you trees and what have you in the backyard. Natural Resources is here if you have any questions. Can you read that?
I've got a question, just as you stated, it's an odd shape.
Yeah.
I think I understand the reason for the front, and I guess that drives the back.
Correct.
And then the side.
Correct.
The Dundee is less than the Dickens.
Correct.
Okay. But because the side yard almost remains a side yard as it makes the bend around the house. So is there ever a situation where, I guess if you had a triangle, there would be no backyard? It would all be side yard?
Technically, the apex of the triangle is the rear yard.
Okay,
If it
so
was that kind
it
of-
changes from side to rear at that apex?
Yes, and what we do is we draw an arc 20 feet out from that
Right.
apex and say that is the setback.
Okay, all right. Thank you for explaining.
Site plan, a little bit better, clarification. Again, this is the front yard according to zoning definition, corner yard. Opposite the front yard is the rear yard. They have asked for relief from the rear yard to the corner of that structure. And that is depicted here. And if I orient it correctly, let's
Yeah,
go
please.
this way.
Nope, other way.
It's a puzzle.
Yes.
So this would be the front yard out here,
Okay.
corner yard. So this is their addition. And the dimension here is hard to read, is what they're asking. I have nothing further to add to the record.
Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Applicant, please come forward. I can't help myself, I have to say it again. Name, address, and have you been sworn in?
Sure. Oh, I'm Beth Garland. We live at 5001 West Dickens Avenue in Tampa, 33629. And yes, I've been sworn in.
Okay,
And Taylor Garland, 5001 West Dickens, Tampa, Florida, 33629, and I have been sworn in.
okay. Would you like us to get you a bigger mic? A taller mic?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We're here, as you heard, to ask for a variance for a reduction of our rear yard from a 20-foot setback to a 7-foot setback. And I'll just go ahead and put this back on the thing. I think it's in the right direction. And as you heard Roberta kindly mention, we have an unusual shaped lot. It's a peninsular shape. We have 30-foot setbacks around the entire front and side of our house along both Homer and Dickens. And so you can see that that causes our house to be set really far back into our side and presumed backyards. Roberta mentioned that this is our current backyard. You can see it's already quite small, and it almost like a side yard with very small setbacks. And this is our existing backyard where we would like to add a screen-in back porch to just extend the livability of our home. The one area where we would encroach then and need into the 7-foot
So
restriction.
actually,
Sorry, I'm
we're
saying the
gonna,
wrong one.
we're gonna leave, it's 7'3" is what will be
That's right,
from the closest corner of this green box, the green box being the added screened in porch, to the property line, still leaves 7'3", so it still respects the typical side yard setback. And this other one might be helpful here.
And then we have a drawing of the proposed screen and porch addition, and you can see the typical 20-foot setback in this shaded area, which goes into the roof line of the screen and porch. But again, the one corner that I guess is of most concern is this 7 foot 3 inch.
Yeah.
To the point, the apex of our 2 yards.
Right, so the shaded area is the extent to which the added screened-in porch encroaches on 20 feet for neighbor B.
For this neighbor.
Yeah.
We have spoken to both of our neighbors. Their side yards are the neighboring parts of our home. So neighbor B's side yard faces our home, and neighbor A's side yard faces our home. And they're both fine and happy with it. We've been talking about it for 3 years, trying to get up the gumption to do another addition or an addition at all. We also, sorry, Taylor, I don't want to leave anything out. We spoke to our neighbors, let's see,
So maybe it's worth noting that the encroachment, as far as we can tell, would only affect one neighbor because there could only be one theoretical backyard. Although you could kind of argue that with the unique shape of the lot and the unique positioning of the existing, it's a 1952 ranch on the lot, that there isn't really a backyard. It's just not oriented in a traditional kind of rectangle where they're all lined up on a grid formation.
That's right.
So both neighbor, let's see if I can go up a little bit. So where I've written neighbor A, that's their side yard would abut here. So it would be like as if you had rectangular lots that were next to each other, so side to side. And the same thing for neighbor B. That's the side of their house because their front yard is up here along Homer. And so it would be their side yard as well.
And we respectfully request your valued opinion.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either on or against this application? Okay, seeing none, board questions for the applicant and or staff? I've got one. Staff, leave that drawing up. Either I totally misunderstood the answer to my question or I'm missing something. They're showing us a drawing where they're concerned about a 20-foot setback on what I think you defined as the side yard, which is 7 feet, not 20. So as you did tell us, the corner does encroach, but so would the other corners of the rest of the house, would it not? If
Okay,
if the rear yard is south.
Okay, if I stated incorrectly, Roberta Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination.
Okay.
Let me clarify. This is the front.
Right.
Opposite the front is the rear.
Correct.
Okay. This is the side yard.
Correct. Which is
Corner
a
yard.
7-foot side yard setback. So their drawing that they're trying to explain would encroach 20 feet. That's not correct. Only the corner or portion of the corner is encroaching, but so is the rest of the house.
Correct.
If that's the rear, so I'm just trying to clarify if the notice is okay, because they're asking for 7 feet, but in fact, there are portions of the existing house that encroach.
Right, and they are not, the way we look at it with staff and the way we counsel them, if they're not touching any portion of the existing house,
Ooh, that's out of focus.
touching any portion of the existing house.
Can you focus that?
Sorry.
That's not helping.
Help us out here.
Wow.
No, there, a little bit better.
A little better. That's a
Well,
lot.
we understand they're not touching or remodeling or doing any work. They're only doing work here, so that's what they've been counseled to ask for. And again, this is their rear yard, and if you look what they've given us, is this dimension here, 7'3", to that corner, measured from the rear yard, and they've
Correct.
drawn a line here.
Right, so the very next corner is,
Would be technically,
yeah,
in front of
inside the
that.
20-foot. So wouldn't the existing, question for legal, wouldn't the existing house also have to be vested? Because we see those cases all the time.
So the remainder of the home doesn't encroach any closer into the setback than what is being
That's-
proposed,
Then
so
what's
it's no
being, then
greater.
what was noticed, that's correct.
Correct. So, arguably, what is presented today, if the variance is approved as depicted on the site plan, it would then vest this footprint
Okay.
as shown.
Okay.
I just want to be sure that there wasn't a notice problem.
I don't believe there is.
Okay.
If a portion of the home encroached further than the 7'3" setback that was noticed, and they want it to vest the footprint of the existing home, then we
Right.
would be looking at an issue with renoticing.
Right.
But
Okay, but you're
Um,
comfortable, we're okay.
I am.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, you have 5 minutes to defend yourself.
We'd like to say thank you again for helping to explain our lot and all of the particularities that come with it. We do love the area and the home and are trying to make this 1952 home a little more livable for our kids and family.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, without objection, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion and/or board discussion.
I'll make a motion. I move that variance request for case VRB 2025 for the property located at 5001 West Dickens Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for reduction in the rear yard from 20 feet to 7 feet. With encroachment of eaves and gutters for the remodel and build of an existing, in addition to an existing single-family residence upon the applicant presenting competent substantial evidence in the record at this public hearing of a necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code, specifically that they have a unique and singular lot, which is the purpose for this board to exist in many cases, and the rear yard functions more practically as a side yard that the current home already projects into at the same amount, and that the neighboring properties' side yards face this rear, technically side yard.
Okay, is there a second for the
I'll second.
Ms. Long? Okay, so we have a motion for approval seconded by Mr. Messer, seconded by Ms. Long. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You've been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next case is VRB 20-26.
Okay, 2 more cases to go. Okay, address, Roberta Mead Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The address is 4411 West Brookwood Drive. The code section under review this evening is 27156. The applicant is seeking to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 6 feet. The applicant is proposing an addition and remodel of an existing single-family residence. The property is zoned RS 75. Property appraiser's information is included in the record. Page 1, page 2. Right-of-way is found inconsistent, and the reason for that is the right-of-way objects due to the easement on the property shown in the survey. Let me put that up right now. See the statement right here? There is an easement here, and again, that straddles the properties here and in the rear. And again, why is that an issue? Because this is the site plan proposed, and he's asking for a 6-foot variance, which would encroach into that easement, okay? So that's why right-of-way has found it inconsistent. Right-of-way would be, we would be asking for the plan to be revised. Natural Resources has found it consistent, the zoning has found it inconsistent, again concurring with the zoning review, or the right-of-way review, sorry. Aerial map, property in red located here. Again, all surrounding properties are RS 75. Westbrookwood Drive is located here. Front of the property. Looking east. Looking west. Again, bring you the site plan or the survey. Proposed site plan, again, it is an addition connecting to the existing lanai here and going back. Maintaining the side setback here, but again, zoning and land development is asking for the plan to be revised, and I believe the applicant is here tonight with a revised site plan. We've also requested the condition that the site plan be revised to increase that setback so that it's out of the easement. We've also asked the applicant to present to you tonight some figures regarding his pervious impervious ratios, because it may be a situation where this addition may trigger something over that. So we've asked him to revise the site plan and present that to you this evening, and also to maybe shorten up what he's got going on with his pool, because again, that is in with the easement. Also, he must maintain 25% green space for the life of the property. We've asked him to present a revised site plan to hopefully reflect all those three conditions. I have nothing further to add to the record. However, sorry, take that back. I do have a letter that came in today, and I believe there is a member from the public here tonight. I do have the copy of her letter to present to the record.
Okay, Mr. Pastor, did you have a question?
Yes. I wanted to be clear, we don't have any authority to grant any type of setback into the easement, right?
I'm sorry?
We don't have any authority to grant encroachment into the easement.
No.
So we couldn't approve 6 feet if we wanted to. The
Correct.
most we could approve is 7.5.
Correct.
Okay.
I've got a question about the comments regarding pervious and green space. They didn't have to notice any of that, the pervious and the green space, if they're not, I mean, they didn't notice any of that. So why is that a concern tonight?
Okay, because let's say you granted the variance, okay, and it increases the, showing the pool and everything has going on in the site plan. We were afraid that granting this variance may trigger something else that they couldn't comply with. So at the time of permitting, it would have created a problem, and they may be back here before you. So we wanted to make sure that the applicant understood that, and we counseled the applicant to have something ready for us tonight to maybe address those three conditions.
Okay, I think I understand the green space concern on pervious versus impervious. That triggers a stormwater requirement that really has nothing to do with setbacks or anything. That's like a building code issue, but it's a stormwater issue, right? Is that all that triggers?
Well, we want you to understand that if you grant this variance, you're creating greater impervious.
No, I know that,
area.
but then that would kick in whatever the stormwater requirements are to mitigate for that. Is that correct? I mean, that's not something this board typically gets involved in.
Correct, but we wanted to make sure that either the applicant knew that he would trigger further compliance with the stormwater, or he
Okay.
was going to present something that would tailor it back.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe he's aware of all this and he'll show us that he's not doing whatever. You have another question?
Well, just to add on to that, I think the point is that even if we approve what he's asking for, we are not eliminating the requirement
Right.
for the
Correct.
impervious area.
Right.
No,
Okay,
that's
So
not what we're
nothing we
asking you
do
to
will eliminate that requirement.
We're not asking you to do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. But I appreciate the proactive comment so that the applicant doesn't get caught later on. That's a good thing. All right, I'm sorry. Anybody else? Okay, applicant, come up, your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ritesh Patel, 4411 West Brookwood Drive, Tampa, Florida, 33629. And I have been sworn in, and just to address Roberta's comment about the revised site plan, I do have copies of a revised site plan that show the request to be outside that easement, 7.5 feet, the rear yard setback. We're proposing in this revised site plan would be 8.2 feet from the rear property line, which would take us outside that easement. When we originally submitted the site plan, obviously, we were not aware of the existence of that easement. It is actually, I think it goes through hardship. If we were not allowed to build this addition, we'd be forced to build an accessory structure, and we are zoned RS 75, which puts us in a 10-foot buffer from the existing structure to what would be the accessory structure, and then we're limited also by that 7.5-foot easement. So that severely constricts what we would hope to do, which is to build an outdoor living area and an outdoor kitchen to go along with the pool. And to just continue on, well, I'll get to the impervious and the pervious and the green space stuff, but I think, as you guys pointed out, your focus is on hardships and meeting the code and allowance for variance that. And so our site proposal would be to be outside of that utility easement of 7.5 feet, be 8.8 feet 2 inches from the rear property line. So that would give us some leeway there for overhang or eaves to not encroach upon that easement. This neighborhood that we live in, which we moved into 2 years ago, is it's a mature neighborhood. We're one of the few newer construction homes. There are several homes within the neighborhood that do have kind of existing structures that I think fall into what we are asking to do. And I do have some pictures that I could put on here. And it's kind of hard to see, but let's see. And so this is one such property, and that's from their rear yard. Another one from I think it's the same property. If you can see that, I don't know. Obviously. Get a little bit closer, and you can see that that certainly isn't within 20 feet. There's another property, again, these are all within our neighborhood, and so what I'm asking here isn't really, it would be more to conform with what's existing in the neighborhood in certain respects. Also, I have spoken to our immediately adjacent neighbors and rear neighbors. I do have 2 letters from my immediately adjacent neighbors that I'd like to enter into the record in support of our variance. Also have spoken to the other 2 neighbors. One is not an objection to what we're trying to do. The others, I'm sure you'll hear from in just a little bit, so I will address any of their concerns during my time in rebuttal. Let's see. I think what we're trying to do here is, and let me just go back to, I'm sorry, the green space and the impervious pervious. We have submitted the permit for the pool. It's going through permitting right now, and as part of that submission of permitting, the pool company is required to certify what the green space is and what the impervious pervious is. And the green space, you got to have a minimum 25%. I believe we are at 33.34%, so we will be above that 25%. The pervious will be over the 50%, but again, that goes to your point, Mr. Chairman. That is the foray of the stormwater as to how we mitigate that. And so I'm not sure if that really factors into your decision, but I did want to point that out because staff did was kind enough to bring that up to us, that it may come up in this hearing, and I did appreciate it, and it allowed me the chance to address that with the pool company and make sure we were fully in compliance. I think we're pretty close on the pool permit. And so, you know, if you don't grant this variance, I think it leaves us in a bind, because with that existing utility easement and the 10-foot buffer, we are very much restricted as to building an accessory structure. And I think that's really it, honestly. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Not yet. It's not question time yet. Okay, I mean, you have 5 minutes. You don't need it? You're done?
Still have 5 minutes?
I'm not trying to drag this out.
No, I think you guys have been. Oh, the one thing I would point out is also, if we were able to build this structure, it will be at the same level of the deck. Our existing lanai is 12 inches off the ground. This would be a step down to the pool deck, so it's not going to be elevated. Sight-wise from the rear neighbors, you won't be able to see, you won't be looking at us walking around the deck or anything like that. So it will be on the ground level, and try to avoid any of that kind of issue for neighbors.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody in the audience like to speak either on or against this application, please come forward. State your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
Hi, my name is Jill Reed. I live at 4510 South Ferncroft Circle, and yes, 33629, and yes, I've been sworn in.
Okay.
So I am here on behalf of a number of neighbors that we all back up to
You
this
only have
property.
3 minutes.
Okay, so we love our neighborhood for many reasons, most of all because we have privacy and we have lots that afford us that privacy. And so we are concerned that if we go from a 20-foot setback behind us to 6 feet, that is not only encroaching on our privacy, but we are very concerned about drainage. That is really a primary concern. We live in a flood zone. We have a lot of flooding issues in Cloverth Bayou. And if we go to a point in our backyard where we have a structure with gutters that are nearly on top of our backyard and our neighbor's backyard, that is a concern. So I have a letter here, or let me get this, from 4 neighbors that back up to this property that are all concerned with this. Let's see. So in addition to my husband, Mike, and I that live at 4510, we've got Robert and Julie Watts at 4508, Conrad and Kimberly Johnson at 4514, and Joe and Mary Helen Chalora that are 4506 South Ferncroft. And none of them could be here tonight. So Joe Chalora also wrote a letter that he would like submitted that I can read quickly if I have a minute. But basically, or I can summarize, I'll summarize. He's just saying that he has been on the city planning council amongst other elected bodies within the city. And if this were in front of him, he would not approve this because there is no hardship. And we can ask for further, you can read what he had written, but the variance as requested will substantially interfere with the welfare of other properties that would be affected by the allowance of this variance. And that I would ask that you ask him to explain what the hardship is when he has a perfectly normal lot. He just built this house 2 years ago, 3,900 square feet, large house to be able to host people, and I think his variance was asking for an extension so that he could host large amounts of people. So with that, I will close.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience? You want to submit the letters for the record? Okay, seeing nobody else in the audience, board, we're open for questions of the applicant or staff.
I have a question for the applicant, or staff, I guess, doesn't really matter which. I see things for that say screen door pad, so is this entire enclosure meant to be screened?
No, ma'am. Open air.
Then I'm,
Oh, that was when we had the original, we thought about screening it in, but we are not going to screen it in.
okay, so, yeah, because I was confused. Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Question for staff. The applicant mentioned a 10-foot building separation. Is that accurate for RS 75? If he were to build an accessory structure, is that 10-foot separation
Yes,
here?
for RS 75, that's correct.
Okay. And assuming the applicant could meet the 10-foot separation, building separation, and assuming we didn't have this easement to deal with, how close could an accessory structure be built to the property, rear property?
Okay, if there was no easement, they would be able to be 3 feet from the rear property line and 3 feet from the side property line.
Okay, thank you. Question for the applicant.
Yes.
Why so big? Why are you building such a big addition? Why so much space?
Just, honestly, it's, we'd like to put an outdoor kitchen and just an outdoor sitting area. So you basically, I have a, I guess.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm looking at your site plan, you've got pavers and existing covered area, right?
Correct, sir.
Is there an outdoor kitchen in that?
No, there's nothing there.
Okay, so what is depicted there in the existing pavers and covered area? What is that?
It's just, basically an existing, little patio.
But on this site plan?
Yes, sir.
There are these countertops and things like that.
No, that was when this was the original plan, and that he mistakenly thought we would put the kitchen there. And the kitchen would be actually towards the back there.
Oh, so you're gonna push the kitchen all the way back to the, why don't you put it there?
I guess we could. I mean, honestly, I thought it was aesthetically better to put it towards the rear of the property. Just because because the other part of this is our living room's gonna get opened up to a slider, and so you'd have the kitchen right outside the slider.
So just to be more specific, our job, what we do here, is to analyze hardships or practical difficulties, and we try and figure out if somebody's gonna invade into the setback, what's the basis for doing that? Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yes, and I think it would go to your point, sir, that if the variance were not granted, I would have a 10-foot buffer, and I would be allowed, but for the easement, to go within 3 foot of the rear property line and 3 foot, I guess, of the side yard. And because that easement is there, I'm not able to do that. And so I would be limited to then 10 foot from my existing structure, and then basically 8 foot from the rear property line, and 7 foot from 3 foot from the side yard. And the other thing I would just like to point out, I mean, we have 52 feet of width of our rear property, the backyard. All we're asking here is 14 foot 7 inches of covered structure of the 52 feet width-wise. And again, there are other structures within our neighborhood that do have these encroachments upon rear setbacks that I can't speak to variance or no variance. So this would be more in conformance with the characteristics of the neighborhood to address. I guess, am I on rebuttal, or we just have?
No, you're just answering questions.
Oh, that's it.
No, you're not on time.
Now's your time to.
Okay. And so that would be my hardship, sir, is the easement precludes me from being able to basically be within where I would be able to be but for the easement.
And that makes some sense to me to say, look, if I didn't have this easement running through the back of my property, I could build an accessory structure that would go up to 3 feet away from the property legally without coming here.
Yes.
I'd go up to 3 feet, and I could go up to the 3, but there would be some size limitations in terms of how big you could build that accessory structure. And staff might be able to fill us in on what the size limitations would be.
Roberta Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Basically, this is zoned RS 75. So we look at the minimum lot size for the RS 75 district, which would be 7,500 square feet. And any accessory structure is allowed to be 15% of 7,500 square feet. Do the math, you're looking at 1125.
I think this is way under that. would be my-
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think this would be well less than the.
This is only 420, all right,
But it's attached.
but it's attached.
I guess for someone on staff, maybe Roberta, I'm sorry. We've heard that he cannot go into the utility easement.
Correct.
Is that a legal document that says that? Or what establishes that? And the only reason I'm asking, there's an existing block wall that is in the easement. Don't know, haven't heard any testimony as to if that's a subdivision wall or a private property wall, or if it's his wall or any of that, but I'm just curious, are we assuming he can't build in it, or do we know that for a fact? And then the follow-up question is going to be, what actual utilities are using the easement? Is it like an overhead power line, an underground power line, water sewer line, stormwater lines? What's in the easement? Do we know?
I can address that, sir.
Oh,
There is an
okay, well,
overhead power
okay,
line.
why don't you answer that while she's doing
Yeah,
the
there is an
research.
overhead power line, sir.
What's that?
There is a power line.
There is a power line.
Yes.
Is it overhead?
Yes.
Do you know about how high it is?
Do not. I would
Okay.
guess it's probably 20 feet.
Okay, and when you bought the property and built, you have a survey.
So it was a spec home.
Oh,
We didn't,
okay, you
we
bought a
didn't have it
spec
built
home,
yet.
okay, all right. Go ahead, Roberta, I'm sorry.
Again, Roberta Mead Curry, there is, we would have to research the answer to actually give you a correct answer on why those walls are there. But I do believe we've had this come up before where the applicant would probably have to apply for a release of easement.
A release
You know?
of easement? And it would be from Tico, correct? Or assuming they're the
They would
power
have to go
company?
through right away.
Just stop, you guys, stop.
They would have to go through right away, and perform that exercise.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to understand the basis by which you cannot build an easement.
But
Because
this
I
might
see
be a
I
case
see a
where-
block wall in the easement.
Again.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because it has bearing on the discussion about the hardship.
Understand.
And, I don't want to be thinking one thing when legally he may be, and I don't want to go down the path of he's got to ask permission. I don't want to do that tonight. But if you know for a fact he cannot, without asking for permission, that answers
Again,
my question.
I'm gonna stand by right away's review where they found it inconsistent, and
Uh-huh.
they're demanding that the, structure be moved out of the.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Go ahead, Mr.
I have a
Pastor.
question for Ms. Mead Curry. So on the plan that we saw with the yellow highlighted area,
Yes?
so is R 75 requires a 10-foot separation of accessory structures? Is that
Yes,
correct?
building to building, they typically require a 10-foot, accessory, structure distance,
Okay.
wall to wall, but they still can do the 5-foot eve to eve.
Oh, okay. All right, so if he put a 10-foot gap between the walls and a 5-foot gap between the eaves, the remainder of that yellow footprint could sit exactly where he's proposed it?
I'm not sure, I think he still has a conflict here.
But I mean, if it's 7.5 feet, if it's out of the easement, because the one I have, it says 8'2".
Well, that's the revised, that's his revised.
Right, so 8'2", in the separation from the rear of the house, the remainder of it could sit right where he's got it proposed.
I haven't seen the revised plan.
7 feet off the side yard, 8'2" off the
Applicant,
rear.
Can you, Mr. Patel, could you put it up? Because I think this is very good, a good question for clarification.
Okay, this is the applicant's
That's
revised
it.
plan being
Yeah, that's
presented
it.
for the
So on the,
record this evening.
on the plan south edge of that, the one closest to the primary structure, if he pulled it back 10 feet, pulled it north 10 feet, he could build the rest of that without a variance. Correct?
Correct.
And he could connect it with a 7-foot wide breezeway.
And he could do a breezeway, five foot wide or whatever.
Well, I heard 7 earlier.
Not
Is
exceed
it-
7
Is
foot
it 7
three in
feet?
Okay, 7'3" in width.
Okay, in width, which is about half of what he's asking.
Okay.
In width.
So So the encroachment on the rear neighbors could occur without any variance at all, if you wanted to. The real question is the connection to the primary structure.
In that question.
That's the question thrown to us.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And just, I hate to beat a dead easement. Going back to the survey again, if you could put that back up, and I forgot to mention this, which is the main reason why I was asking about the wall. The next door neighbor has a carport / covered concrete structure in the easement. So, that's why I was asking, okay? And maybe that's a grandfathered in situation.
And I believe the property under review this evening is the property before you.
No, I
Dr.
know,
Mayor.
but the site plan shows what's happening next door, so, as well as the wall that is not even, well, it does touch his property, eventually, but mostly not on his property. Okay, I'm done with
So we
that.
have to research what the neighbors have.
No,
to see their
I'm not
phone
looking to
calls.
hold things up tonight, I just was curious. Any other questions for, staff or the applicant or the neighbor who spoke? All right, seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Patel.
Yeah, I would just like to address their concerns on the drainage. Obviously, we are going through permitting for the pool, which is going to involve drainage. They will not, as you guys know, allow me to flood my neighbor's property, as is their concern. And we will take whatever steps to mitigate that as may happen. And also, we had some email correspondence. They were concerned about visually they would be able to see our structure, but I don't believe that's really a concern either, because the way their property sits in this, I have a couple of pictures here. The property is essentially a corner lot, and what we are proposing, do I have to hit a button? There we go. So here's their property. Behind these palm trees and these trees is their carport. Their rear yard is actually way over here. And so it's really, anything we do shouldn't interfere at all with their property. And I just want to make that clear that the actual property that will, I would think, be most affected is the property to their left, right here, the Van Luberens. And I have spoken to them, and they have no objection, and they are not on the letter that was presented by the Reeds. And I would just like to make that clear. And I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your consideration, and thank you all very much.
You're welcome. All right, without objection, I'm going to close the public hearing, ask for a motion, and no discussion.
Well, I'll just say that the concern from the neighbors about the encroachment really is not a concern of mine, because they can build it there anyway. However, in terms of hardship of the property, practical difficulty of the property, etc., I don't see a reason that it needs to be connected all the way in its 14.5-foot width. So if we denied this, he could build a 14.7 foot by 18.6 foot structure with a 7-foot 3 wide breezeway in the same spot he's got it, even if we deny it. What I'm wondering is there a hardship to have it fully connected as a primary structure? I didn't really hear one, so that's where I'm at.
So one, I guess, point that I noticed was their property is considerably like thinner than the other properties in the neighborhood. So should their property be the same width, roughly 75 feet, as both of their adjacent neighbors, then they would have more square footage, and could, without doing the math, could in theory put the structure of the same size within their property and still follow the parameters of the city code. So I see that as a potential hardship.
But did they present that hardship about the width of their property?
They did not.
Okay, so that wasn't a hardship they gave us. That's one that we're implying.
We can't introduce testimony. It's based on what we hear, and
I mean,
But now.
it's
It's
still.
in the record.
It's still
in
a
the
fact.
Right there in front
Well,
of
no,
us.
I'm talking
I'm
about
just
the width
saying,
of the lot.
I'm just saying,
compared to
if
others.
they can't make that argument for themselves, then, you know, that wasn't a
Yeah.
hardship that led them to this decision. It doesn't seem, it could.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I mean, I'll just say this, I'm quite literally on the fence here, in terms of how I wanna see this. I understand the neighbors' concerns. The problem that comes with those concerns is that the ordinances, the codes allow this applicant to build it even closer to their property without coming here, without any approvals other than just getting permits, you know, but for the fact that there's an easement running through the back that they have to deal with. And so that easement coming up is a hardship consideration, the fact that they have to work around that easement. But that doesn't really address the connection. And it's not like they're saying, well, you know, we need this for some specific purpose. It's just, well, we sure would like it that way.
Well, just tell me if I'm wrong in this thinking. I think the easement's irrelevant because if the easement wasn't there and they said, well, we could go build 3 feet from the rear property line, it would have to be disconnected by 10 feet still, which they can still do. So I think that's irrelevant because if you're going to use the easement argument, then you are by default saying that it would be an accessory disconnected structure.
No, I'll answer that.
Because if it's a primary structure, the easement does not come into play.
It does, because what they're saying is that they could have a bigger piece of, they could have a bigger accessory structure by building it closer. They could go up to the 10 feet, right? And so they could expand the size, but by being constrained by the easement, you're shrinking what they can build out in that area. So they're trying to expand closer to the main structure, and then they run up against the abutment, the distance between main structure.
That's true. So it limits them by
Size.
4.5 feet of length.
Yeah, so there is some impact, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily.
That's true. It does push it back.
All right, you guys covered that well. Ms. Long, do you have, Ms. Walker? No? Ms. Ortega? All right, I gotta bring up the obvious. You're absolutely right about the point you made, okay? I didn't hear any testimony as to why they're maintaining the 8'3" side setback. They could go 3 feet. They could pick up 5 more feet legally without a variance if they detach, as was mentioned, the 10 feet and still connect with a up to 7 whatever foot breezeway. They could expand this towards the side property line without asking for permission. So they could make something even bigger than what they have currently, all right? If they make it an accessory structure, okay? If they keep it as a primary structure, they could pick up another 1.3 feet. They could go to 7 feet.
Do they not have a problem with that carport if they start doing that?
No, well, the carport's on the other property, so no, I don't believe so.
You don't have a separation issue between that?
No, not if they're maintaining the setback. No, the setbacks address that.
Yeah, but the neighbors, we don't know that the neighbors are at the setback. The neighbor could be at 0 feet.
No, well, not according to this survey. No, actually, the survey shows that the survey shows they're 2.2 feet, the carport to the property line.
Okay.
It does show that. So, anyway, my point is that I'm not in favor of this because I see no hardship from the standpoint of the connection.
Excuse me, if
Hey,
there's
guys,
a couple
we need to-
conversations going
yeah,
on,
we need
and
to have one.
from due process standpoint, if
Yep.
one person can speak at one time.
Yep, only one of us. It's me right now. So anyway, I didn't hear any hardship issues regarding the connection aspect. I see ample room to make this plenty large, meet all of the setbacks as an accessory structure, so I could not approve it. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion?
Suppose I can.
Ask for one thing.
No, we're done. We're done.
I move that variance request for case VRB 2026 for the property located at 4411 West Brookwood Drive for reduction in the rear yard from 20 feet to 6 feet with encroachment of eaves and gutters be denied due to the failure of the petitioner to meet his burden of proof to provide competent substantial evidence in the record of this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code, specifically that the property is relatively standard, although maybe undersized, although that wasn't presented to us, and the applicant can achieve an accessory structure that meets the square footage and general location presented here, and we saw no hardship requiring reduction in primary setbacks.
Okay, we have a motion for denial. Is there a second? Am I allowed a second?
If you want to pass the gavel.
Do you have to do anything? Just hold it?
That's fine.
Then I'll make a second for denial.
And
So-
just for clarification, the requested variance, I believe, during the hearing was amended. Instead of going from 20 feet to 6 feet, it was
I'd
20
like
feet
to amend my
8 foot
motion
2.
to 7.5 feet.
I think it was 8 foot 2 inches.
20 feet to 8'2". I'd like to make it 7.5 because that's what he's allowed to go up to. But if we want to make it
Okay,
8.2,
you said 8.2.
that's fine.
All right. All right, so we have a motion for denial, Mr. Pasteur, seconded by the chair. All in favor of denial, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
So roll call. Aye.
Nay.
Aye. All right, so the motion failed. We would need a new motion for approval. I'll take my gavel back. I don't get to keep it much longer. Boy, crickets.
All right, I'll make a motion. I move that the variance request for case VRB 20-26 for the property located at 4411 West Brookwood Drive be granted as depicted on the revised site plan, excuse me, presented at the public hearing for a reduction in the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 8.3 feet with encroachment. 8.2 feet with encroachment for eaves and gutters, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, more specifically that the alleged hardship is unique and singular to this property because an easement located in the rear of the structure prohibits the ability of the applicant to construct an accessory structure within the setbacks that would otherwise be applicable to this property, and is in harmony with and serves the general intent of the Tampa City Code, as multiple other houses in the neighborhood have pools and similar accessory structures.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion for approval by Ms. Walker, second by Ms. Long. Again, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. You're approved, 4-2.
Thank you.
Oh, we'll do a roll call. Those in favor?
Aye.
And the nays were Mr. Pasteur and I. Mr. Brown. All right, last and not least, VRB 20-27.
And again, if we're following the agenda, we have elections following the last date.
We can't dash? Yes, we have to stay here and do elections.
Okay, VRB case number 20-27, Roberta Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. The address is 3908 West Hillsborough Avenue. The applicant is seeking to increase maximum allowable building signage from 264.37 square feet to 367.32 square feet in relation to Code Section 27-289.3 paren B, paren 6. Applicant is seeking to install one building sign as allowed for code with 4 additional building signs within the allowable signage area for a new tenant. The property is zoned CI, commercial intensive. Hillsborough County property appraiser information is included in the record, and I will show you that. Right away finds it consistent, and zoning finds it inconsistent. Again, this is the property card, large parcel on Hillsborough Avenue. It consists of several buildings. Building 4 is the location of the tenant space. Aerial map. Again, large parcel here. The building 4 is here, and the tenant space is proximally located here. This is Hillsborough Avenue. And the surrounding properties are CI. Again, the photos are a portion of the property as it depicts to the tenant. This is the coming into the main drive, looking at the proposed tenant space. Looking to the left of that tenant space. This is the tenant space. This is to the left of that building. To the right, along the rest of that facade. This is as I turn around and look towards Hillsborough Avenue, you start to see some of the out parcels and buildings fronting Hillsborough Avenue, but also, as I stand here, this is where the tenant space is, okay? Again, you can see barely Hillsborough Avenue here. Going out to the street, looking east along Hillsborough Avenue. Looking west. And again, standing at Hillsborough Avenue, looking back into the property, and you can see the facade, proposed facade. Site plan. Again, Hillsborough Avenue, proposed tenant space. This is where the signage would be here. Again, the signage is composed of one large sign housed here above the parapet wall, height wall, and the additional signs here. The additional signs would be comprised of this language. And per our signage code, this is how it is being presented as meeting the square footage. Again, we box around the square footage and come up with that total. So that is the total the applicant has presented, that it exceeds the allowable. Again, his allowable is from this distance to this distance of the tenant space. We multiply it by 1.25, come up with a figure. However, what he's depicting is asking for an increase. I have no further information to add to the record.
Question, Mr. Feldman?
Do you know if we approved an application for this property previously? Is that in the record?
A variance application
Yeah.
for this particular tenant space?
Yes.
I am not aware of that, no, sir. This
Okay.
is new construction and a new tenant space, so we would start over.
Okay. When you, just looking at this picture, those blank spaces in between the words, that all counts?
Correct.
Okay.
The way he's depicted it, yes, and the way we measure the signage area, he's allowed to do that.
All right, I'm sure the applicant will address that. Thank you.
All right, applicant, please come forward. name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
Thank you, Roberta. Good evening, I'm Mark Brenchley. Address is 3790 Beacon Ridge Way, Claremont, Florida, 34711. I represent the owner of the property.
And have you been sworn in, Mr.
Yes,
Brenchel?
thank you. I
Okay.
have been.
Welcome.
I represent the owner of the property, Horizons, let's see, the official name is CRP 2-Horizon Park LLC. This is the Horizon Park Shopping Center, built in 1971. At the time the shopping center was built, the City of Tampa sign code restricted the maximum allowable area to 2 square feet per foot. And it was reduced in 2009 to the 1.25 square feet. I wanted to show the hardship that the application presents. I wish to show it a little graphically so that you can understand it a little easier. But first, just use the same graphic that Roberta showed, the survey, but because it was this distance right here, you probably have one yourself for individual ones, 440-foot setback from the right-of-way, the south right-of-way line of Hillsborough Avenue to the facade, 440 feet. And this is a typical commercial lot in which the sign code was developed to address the most common, the most typical setback in our city. So they would have the visibility, the wayfinding opportunities, the identification, and so forth. So as mentioned in the application and shown here graphically, the typical building is typically 80 feet setback from the street. There's an 8-foot minimum landscape buffer that's required in all properties next to the vehicle area, a 62-foot wide double-loaded parking lot, and then a 10 to 12-foot sidewalk landscaping allowing access around the building, to the building, and so forth. So that means 80 feet. So this property is, the facade is 5.5 times greater than the distances that were normal in the creation of the sign code. Clearly a hardship, it's a special circumstance, and this variance allowing a larger maximum sign area is a little deceiving because, as Roberta mentioned, the sign code requires only allows one sign. So she drew the thing, which means that all the voids in the area are calculated. But if we just calculated the exact square feet of all 5 signs, Collins Home Plus, which is the major one in the middle, put this up so you can see it better. And then we add to it mattresses, appliances, electronics, furniture, mattresses. If we add the exact sign area, we exceed the maximum allowed area by 3/4 of a square foot. It is this
Are you
void,
sure?
it's the void in the middle that is causing this creation, the requirement for the variance, because the code allows one sign per frontage wall facing the street. And that's why we're here to seek redress to that. This, all 5 of the points that are required, the findings of fact, can be shown to be positive in this signage. I talked about that, the hardship with the great 5.5 times the normal viewing distance. Number 2, the hardship, practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant is a new tenant seeking retail viability and success in this existing yet challenged retail strip center built in 1971. When the center was built, the Tampa sign code allowed 2 square feet, as I mentioned, and reduced. So every time these ordinances, and they're always going to be constricting, reducing the maximum allowable sign area. Every time the city reduces this, there is another hardship, or the hardship is increased. Number 3, if granted, the sign variance will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, welfare of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of this variance. In fact, the safety and the wayfinding requirements of the public will be enhanced by this variance. The traffic along Hillsborough is very fast, it is very crowded, and oftentimes if people are looking for the wayfinding identification of signs, if they are so obscure, they slow traffic as they're looking to try and find a way to get off the highway, find the access, find where the store is, and so forth. And so safety and visibility are increased by such a variance. 4th, the purpose of the sign code was established to promote health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. This is section 25-289, parent A, purpose. But also to provide regulations that were effective and flexible in discouraging visual blight, yet enhancing visual access and identification for effective emergency response. Regulations promote signs that are attractive and contribute to the economic value of tourism, visitation, and permanent economic growth, and accomplish that by regulating the size and location of signs. Because of the unique limiting constraints of the property mentioned in 1 and 2 above, a variance, if approved, will ameliorate these negative constraints, increase financial viability and economic growth, and at the same time be in harmony and serve the purpose and intent of the sign code and the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And finally, number 5, if approved, the variance will result in substantial justice being done considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by the sign code and the individual hardships, practical and economic viability difficulties that will be suffered due to a failure of the board to grant this variance. So your question about have other variances been granted? Yes, they have. I think this sign here that wasn't visible when you took your photographs this week, but when I took the photographs 2 months ago, Babies R Us is the tenant space that used to occupy. This sign is 8 feet by 40, so it's well over even the maximum allowable sign. So they must have either got in before the sign code was 2 square feet, before it was reduced to 1.25, or a variance was granted, because it exceeds what is now allowable. Any questions?
Are you done with your presentation?
I am, yes.
Seeing no one in the audience, there might be somebody back.
Officer, would you like to? All right, seeing none, so yes, board questions for the applicant and or staff? Gee, I don't want to drag it out. Go ahead.
I have a real quick
Ms.
question.
Long.
That Babies R Us location is where Cons is going in?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, that's all I
Yes,
wanted
it
to
is.
know. That's what I thought, but I want to make sure.
My only question is, why do the 4 words have to be spread out? Why can't they be brought closer together and made in a smaller square footage area? Because the pictures you showed of the other tenant signs, they're all pretty much centered on the space. There's no attempt to stretch them out. Why is this tenant so
You're right,
special?
the products and the items that they sell in these point of sale signs are crucial to furniture stores and also public stores, other types of stores, because they want to be able to display what range of products they have. And unfortunately, they are all big box stores, and they always they're told by their architects that you need to balance and have proportion and ratios that are comfortable for the public to look at. So they always spread these out, which causes the square footage to be increased. I would welcome.
No, I mean, I totally understand. I'm just looking at the photograph of D&D's discounts, and they have ladies, kids, men's shoes, home, all directly below. So in other words, they made their central sign area smaller, and they still got all the words in. So I'm just trying to understand why it's important for that, and what's the hardship for making it wider as opposed to bringing it all in one center place.
Well, the hardship is because the distance is so great from the viewing distance from the public right of way, and that's the regulation for all sign codes. It is based from the view from the public right of way. They want to increase the signs as large as they can so they can be seen from the public right of way.
Okay. Anybody else have any, Mr. Pastor?
It would appear from the photos in the package that we were given, Northern Tool to the left has 4 additional signs in a row. So,
To the left, you say?
yeah, to the left of the main logo. Would have been nice for Mr. Benchley to mention that, but it is in the packet that was
Okay, no,
submitted.
if it's in
so
the photo. I was looking at the one immediately next door that was obvious.
it's pretty much
My
like
question.
it's like it is the one to the left.
Okay.
It is the next door neighbor, and
Okay.
it's got 4 signs.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? You have 5 more minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Bench.
I do not need that. It's too
Okay.
cold to stay any longer.
Too cold? We didn't heat it up tonight? All right. Okay, without objection, I'll close the public hearing, ask the board for a motion and/or discussion. Ms. Long going to make a motion? Okay.
Move the variance request for case VRB 2027 for the property located at 3908 West Hillsborough Avenue. The granted is depicted on the site plan, on the plan presented at the
Public hearing for an increase in the maximum allowable wall signage from 264.37 square feet to 367.32 square feet per section 27-289.3 sub B sub 6. Lost my place. Based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code, specifically that this particular business is set significantly away from the main road. There are some buildings in front of it also. It is on a very fast-moving road, so it requires a little more signage to get the attraction of the people driving by. Well, I'm not even gonna get up. That's it. That's it.
Okay, we have a motion for approval by Ms. Long, a second by Mr. Pastor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You were approved 5-1.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good night.
No, I vote by conscience. All right, can't leave yet. You guys have to vote.
And
Yeah.
before we vote, we have a small presentation. Okay, on behalf of all of us.
And I also have a copy of the letter from Kathleen. She's now the original. Thank you for your service.
Well, that's very nice. That's cool. But I did tell her not to reelect me. Thank you. I don't know, I lost count after
Forever.
7. I just want to say it's been an honor. It is a privilege to be able to serve the city of Tampa, especially in a position like this. I hope you all know that, which I'm sure you do. I learned a lot from staff, and I even learned from board members, new and older ones. There were some very prominent people that have come through my tenure. I'm not using this as a springboard to run for office. Not once did I mention my company name, Sterling Bay Homes.
That's true.
So, So anyway, that's just, thank you very
Email
much.
gives you away, though.
Yeah. Thank you. So, who wants to jump in the chair? Do we have nominations?
I would nominate Dustin Pastor.
Any other? Wait, any other nominations? I'd like to nominate Mr. Feldman.
I'll nominate Mr. Pastor.
I want to nominate Ms. Walker.
I don't know that I can serve as.
She's an alternate.
Maybe
She can't.
next
Oh,
time.
you're an alternate. Oh, I didn't know you were an alternate.
I
Okay.
second Mr. Pastor.
Living room. Okay.
Well, I don't know, we need a second. We just need a vote, right? All right, so all in favor of Mr. Pastor being chair, say aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Feldman, aye. I lose
Nice
again.
try,
I lose
nice
again. Mr. Pastor,
There
the
you
great
go.
thing about this job is you don't get to talk as much.
I'm the vice chair, so we need to probably elect a vice chair.
Yeah, don't we need a vice chair? Yes. So we need nomination for vice chair,
I nominate Brett.
all right? Okay, Lynn, you accept the nomination? Yes, she does. All right, all in favor of Mr. Feldman? Aye. Ms. Hurtak? Feldman.
I still have a lot to learn.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Feldman's vice chair. Cool. All right. So wait, you can adjourn the meeting.
Nice work.
Are you gonna take your name, please?
No,
God, take your
no.
name.